So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And today we are doing the next edition of our Sustainability Summit that was started quite a while ago, back even in Ukraine. And the event is initially called Fashion Tech Summit, and it has different topics during every installment when we do it. And this time we decided to talk about NFTs and sustainability because we just started to receive so many questions from our community, what NFTs are and what are their impact on the environment, and especially because we, from the very beginning and the very start of DressX, were kind of pioneering the discussion on sustainability together with other players in the market of digital fashion. And we really wanted to dive deeper in such a new topic of non-fungible tokens and their impact on environment and on sustainability industry in general. So basically today we will be discussing all these important points with stakeholders whom we kindly invited to participate, and they agreed, and we're very happy to have you everyone here. And the recording of the conversations and our discussions will be sent to all those people who registered to listen, because not everyone is attending, but the video will be distributed among many of our subscribers and followers and those who are who gave their emails to the newsletter. So basically, we're sure that this information will be delivered to as many people from our community as possible, and obviously we'll encourage everyone to share it with the friends, so more and more people will understand the topic. So basically, I will give the word to Natalia to maybe outline the most important topics, and then to Olga to start presenting from our side, and then our speakers will contribute to the discussion, and hopefully will present some data that will be new and innovative, and something that you all will consider and think about long after this day when we're here all together.
Thank you, Daria, for greetings, and thanks again to everyone for participating today as speakers and as guests. And for us at DressX, sustainability was a very important topic from the very beginning. That's why even before the start of the company and any activities, we decided to calculate how sustainable digital fashion is in comparison to the traditional fashion industry. And that was a very great knowledge, and we happily share it with everyone. And before diving very, very deep in the topic of NFTs and blockchain, we also decided to actually calculate an impact and have a certain data about that. And that's why we started this research, and Olga, our Chief Sustainability Officer, is leading that, along with the Sustainability Officer from the Fabricant team. And thank you, Adriana, for joining in this journey. I think with joint forces, we can achieve all the results faster and move the whole industry forward faster. And I invite everyone also to participate. And today we will present the roadmap towards more sustainable NFTs, and we'll announce some of the news from DressX as well. And Olga, no more words. Let's share and keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Daria. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And yes, I'm just going to share my screen to present the presentation, to show you the presentation. Oh, share. Here we go. Like Natalia already said, that before starting using an NFT as one of the use cases for the digital fashion at DressX, we decided to conduct a study and to understand, is NFT really has a huge environmental cost or not? And we decided to collaborate with our friends from the Fabricant, and we're working on this report together. So I hope that in the next month or couple of months, we will issue this report. But today, the aim of this summit is just to put together people from who understand NFT from different aspects, and to put some kind of a roadmap to the more sustainable NFT. And let's use this phrase to start. Yes, if you're engaging on Ethereum or any other platform which works on proof of work, using the proof of work as a mechanism, you are responsible for the portion of the carbon footprint. And if you are minting your NFT, your NFT has a carbon footprint. Or we would like to take this use case as any other use case on the calculation of the carbon footprint and identifying the ways how to reduce this. So we use a standard climate assessment approach. And this climate assessment approach has 3 steps. First of all, calculate the emission. The second step is to try and find ways how we can reduce this emission. And the last step is to offset this, to offset the rest, what we have. So I've been reading a lot of articles on the Clean NFT Discord channel, and the guys there did an amazing work on calculation of the average energy consumption per NFT and average emission per NFT. And I guess that guys from Carbon FYI did some part of these calculations. And today you will have an opportunity to listen and to have some knowledge how they did it. So I just took the numbers from their research. And what we can report is that average consumption, energy consumption per NFT is about 427 kilowatt. And just to give you an understanding what it is, it's an average consumption of the household, one household in Europe. So if you take a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids, this will be this household energy consumption per month. And it's just only for one NFT. Is it a lot? It's not a lot. Well, we're not going to judge today. It's just to give you some kind of benchmark. And the average emission per one NFT, it's, let's say, an average 250 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And let's say if you decided to release your collection, just collection of white t-shirts, your collection will have a carbon footprint, of course. So you will be able to produce 28 one cotton t-shirts to have the same carbon emission as a carbon emission of one NFT. Again, it's just to give you a benchmark. What is it for one NFT? So the second step of the climate assessment is to reduce emissions. And as we all know, there is a huge discussion about proof of stake and proof of work and what is the difference. And the proof of work is very energy consuming because of its mechanism, and proof of stake is much more effective. We'll have a great panelist later today who knows about proof of stake and proof of work much better than me, and he will explain to us all the mechanism behind it. But collecting again the data, if we will look on the energy consumption of NFT which when minted on the proof of stake blockchain, it has 200 milliwatt hour. And if we will convert it like in the some kind of multiplication factor, it's reducing the energy consumption by million. So just saying that if we move from proof of stake, from proof of work to the proof of stake, we will reduce the environmental impact by 99.9%. The second point of going to the more efficient NFT in terms of carbon footprint is the source of the energy. So when I provided these numbers, like 250 kilogram of CO2 equivalent per one NFT, this conversion was using the general mix of energy from US and Europe. But let's say if instead of using a general mix, which has fossil fuels, some renewables, etc. So let's say that instead of this general mix, we use 100% solar energy to our blockchain, to power our blockchain. In this case, the carbon footprint of one NFT will go to 39, let's say 40 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And what is it? It's just only one already. So one NFT will be equivalent to the production of one cotton t-shirt. If you use wind power, the carbon footprint will go to 13 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And if we use a nuclear power, well, in this case, the carbon footprint will go to only 3 kilograms of carbon of CO2 equivalent. So we can say that we have 99% decrease of carbon emission if we're switching from the average energy mix to the nuclear power. And the first step we identify on our roadmap of the more sustainable NFT is, of course, the carbon offset. And recently, we started to hear different opinions how efficient carbon offset is, how efficient is to buy carbon credits or planting forests or conservation programs. Everyone decides what he believes in, but if you have any ideas how to offset more efficiently the rest of the carbon today, this is why we are today going to discuss that. And I guess in terms of the roadmap from my side, that's all. So we will have different speakers who will cover different parts of this assessment. And then we'll just have a short summary what is going to happen next. And I think that the next slide is for Natalia, and she has some news to share.
Thank you, Olga. And yes, as mentioned before, digging into some new endeavor, we want to make sure that we are responsible for what we're doing with the planet. So DressX is launching the NFT fashion platform, and it will be dedicated for fashion NFTs in particular. So what's important that all the fashion NFT items will be wearable on your photos for social media, and also in AR with DressX mobile app that is also coming soon. So I invite you to join the early bird list at nft.dressx.com. And we also wanted to share the vision of the future of digital fashion. So here it is. We can show in the video. So the idea is to provide a digital wardrobe and closet for every appearance of a person in their online, in their digital life, whether it's like, again, social media or AR or any virtual spaces. The digital fashion wardrobe is always with you. And last night I was traveling and like packed my phone like my digital wardrobe. And yeah, actually going to experiment how it's gonna work out in the end.
Okay. Well, thank you, Natalia. That was all from our side, and now I want to announce the first topic we are going to discuss today, and I call this topic the reimagining NFT with digital fashion. And basically we're just going to discuss why we have NFT here with us for a long time, and that is why we think that we have to think about the sustainability part. And our first speaker, I'm really honored to announce Pierre Nicolas, the co-founder of Ariani. Hello, Pierre.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? Would you
Very
like
good,
to share the slides for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go.
If we can start at the first, it would be awesome. I think you're at this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, you know, we've been in this NFT game for a couple of years now. We started Ariani at the end of 2017 with the conviction that this little capsule of value, this little piece of digital scarcity, could deeply change the relationship between brands, creators, innovators, and their publics, whether these publics are owners of their creations or objects, or part of their community. And so the three ways we see NFTs accompanying fashion are, on the left side of this slide, what we call the one-of-a-kind ownership experience. You get a physical product and you get a digital twin for this physical product that is going to embark not only better ways to use this product, to keep it longer, maybe to resell it, but also maybe a digital version of it that you can use in a game, that you can use at home on social media with filters and things like that. Then right in the middle, it's more what we've just seen, what we call, exclusive, scarce digital assets, purely digital goods, 3D fashion, digital goodies, anything that is going to allow someone to exist with a brand or with a creator, or to be part of a community online with something purely digital. We see another opportunity on the right side on community engagement, proof of attendance, proof of belonging, all the things you can do to remember that you've been part of something or to access something. So this is how we see the NFT opportunity for brands. So if we move to the next slide, please, and even to the next one here. And one thing is essential when we look at this is how the brand and its productions are going to become components of the internet. That's really what changes everything. And when we look at the sustainability question and the impact of this, we have to be extremely careful on the type of technologies we use. Our vision is that when you allow a brand to generate NFTs for digital twins, for scarce and purely digital assets, for engagement assets, it's like opening a factory for the brand on the internet. Brands have factories in the real life where they produce physical goods. Now we're going to make them components of the internet, give them an NFT factory on the network. This is what we call at Ariani the brand identity. This brand identity, the smart contract, is the source of all the NFTs. Is what's going to make everyone confident about the origin of each of these digital assets. But it's also what we're going to have to look at in terms of emissions, in terms of impact. And you spoke about proof of work, proof of stake, and that's absolutely true. As long as we stay on proof of work systems, there is absolutely no way that this can be positive or at least acceptable for the environment. At Ariani, we've decided for a very long time not to work on the mainnet. We've started by exploring side chains and now L2s in order to make sure that whatever we do is never going to get to an NFT that has the same consumption of 1 month of a European family. I mean, you said you didn't want to judge, but in my point of view, this is unbearable. We must be extremely careful on what we do. And we think it's really, really important. And I know Marjorie is here and she'll talk about Lukso a little later. And Lukso is one of these type of blockchains are exactly the kind of solutions that we need to avoid the downsides of the main Ethereum net that at Ariani we do not use, just to be very clear. Then, if you move on to the next slide, very quickly, we really think brands and creators can explore this paradigm, these new paradigms, offering new ownership experiences, explore new territories, increase audience engagement. And we'll move on to the next, please. Just to say that at the heart of everything is going to be the wallet. Sometimes we wonder at Ariani, if we think about what happened when the iPhone was released in 2007, many amazing ideas came 10 years before, 5 years before, 3 years before, and nothing was possible until you got a smartphone and high-speed mobile data. In a way, it's kind of a little bit the same for all of us here. When is the wallet going to become the main thing, a mainstream thing for everyone? Who's going to be offering a wallet within every phone, within every main app, within every super app? Because this is the key. This is the navigator of the future. This is where all the experiences can start, where the brands can propose digital assets, when an ecosystem can be opened, when interactions can be created, and where interoperability can actually be unlocked. So, many people are working on wallets. Many people are trying to find the best way to integrate that. But I think we should all have in mind what we can do together as an industry to make sure that we increase the level of adoption of wallets within the hands of our stakeholders. And I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to share today. And I'm happy to take on any questions if you want.
Thank you, Pierre Nicolas. I think that we will give an opportunity to other to other speakers from this topic to present, and then we'll have the questions. And I give the next word to Adriana, the partner commercial director of the Fabricant. Hello, Adriana, I know you're here. Hello.
I'm there.
Can you share your slides, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I think it's better if I share, so then I can.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
No worries, I'll do it right now. Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for working together on this for quite some time already, and it's a wonderful partnership that extends from the commercial to actually vision, where we team up to try to understand our impact and prove that digital fashion is a more sustainable way to go, which we certainly subscribe to. So we are the Fabricant, we are a digital fashion house, meaning we only do digital fashion, never physical. We were founded in Amsterdam in 2018. And with a label, I think the first true digital only fashion house in the world, with a label that we are very proud of. For us, from the very beginning, it's super important, again, the sustainability aspect. And in our tagline, we say we waste nothing but data and exploit nothing but imagination. So we're always looking at the most sustainable way, and we're always challenging ourselves and trying to prove and educate the ecosystem that digital fashion is more sustainable and will remain more sustainable than the physical equivalent. We were also the first fashion house that sold a digital-only dressing blockchain in 2019 for 54 Ethers. And back then, I think we ourselves didn't even understand what that meant. And the world also didn't understand. It was a very small community. But because it happened, it really marked a start, I think it's the start of digital-only fashion, certainly in chain. And from there, we continued with our mission to create this new sector of digital-only clothing. And educating the world, very much also powered by the media attention that we got, and start challenging the fashion industry and creators in general to join us in basically building this new sector where the industries are converging. The industry of fashion and gaming and blockchain are converging in this new space, what we call fashion 3.0, digital fashion 3.0, where we strongly believe that all of us will very soon have 3D avatars of ourselves. And those 3D avatars will be exploring the metaverse, and they will need clothes to represent their identities. And that's where we position ourselves to provide the clothes for the metaverse. Which means that there will be gaming, of course, opportunities. And I think that's the most easy for everybody to see because it's already happening, where you're dressing up your avatar with the brand you love in a gaming environment, in a 3D environment. There is very much what DressX is doing so beautifully, which is the social wardrobe, when you overlay the digital wardrobe in your selfie, or in other kind of more less extravagant interactive experiences. And finally, the digital couture, which is the one of a kind that you want to collect, that you want to actually proudly exhibit, and has the value for resale as much as for acquiring your wardrobe. And ultimately, what we believe in is that we are living this new fashion renaissance, which is a much more creative space. And why it's creative is because there are no boundaries of physicality. We can really go wild and create new materials, create new experiences that don't exist in our physical world. It's also creative because it's the first time where truly equitability will be happening, where when we join forces with other creators and all our projects are always in co-creation with brands or other designers, we can really assign that ownership, that creative value to each party equally, and that remains. And finally, we strongly believe that it's more sustainable. I think it's beautiful to do the work together with DressX because we are both very passionate about the sustainability element. And what I like to think is, one, we are in a very nascent technology, and as nascent, we believe that it's going to get better. And I think people that are in the NFT space have seen the announcements of the Ethereum very much pushing the proof of stake as the development, and they promised that in 6 months it's going to be there. But equally, the fact that when adopting digital, you're going to adopt one item to wear in multiple times or to be able to distribute to many people. And while every physical item can only be owned by one person, a digital item can be owned by thousands of people, millions of people at the same time. So there is also a scalability effect that certainly needs to be taken into account. That again proves the case that we are here for absolutely a more sustainable path, more equitable and more creative, and absolutely exciting. So very, very proud to be part of this forum and together with people that believe in this new future and that also that wants to challenge this new future. And I'm there for any questions and good debates. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you. Like I said, we will keep questions till the end of the slot if we will have time, or maybe to the panel discussion. And I want to present another speaker in for this topic is Davy Peter Brown, developer, designer, and fashion tech consultant. Hello, Davy.
Hi, thank you very much, Olga. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Just let me know if you see things properly.
Yep.
All right, good. I'd like to use this panel to try to think your brain a little bit, because we've been discussing sustainability, and a lot of that has to do, when we talk about it, with ecology. And I also believe that we must not miss the idea of the human part of it. And I'm a firm believer in degrowth. And I'm a fashion designer, academically trained, but I worked as a technologist and developer for more than a decade. And I work with big names in the luxury industry in France and by proxy in Italy and Switzerland. And so I see on NFT and what's happening right now in the scene, a convergence between all my center of interest. And having been working on blockchain development extensively for a few months now, I've been working on NFTs. And I would like to share with you an interesting shift in business models for the business model in the fashion industry that I strongly believe is emerging through NFTs and the changes in this field. It was let me introduce this to you real quick. We can start by just seeing that there's a convergence between a couple of big trends of confirming signal. The first one being the emergence of a new class of consumers that really want to take back their share in the creation of value that they help create. These are consumers that you can see in the sneakers addiction industry, people who actually gather together in cook groups and come up with very complex strategies and schemes to cope coveted sneakers, which are very big cultural value items, and then we'll resell it on dedicated marketplaces with a benefit, of course. But there are also the people who you probably know work in the fashion industry and who work for brands or companies and use their employee discount to pouch a lot during employee sales of important pieces, and use their network of colleagues and coworkers who do the same so that they can exchange important pieces and sometimes resell them on other dedicated marketplaces with a benefit. And so this is a practice that is already existing, and it's fun to witness that the existence of dedicated marketplace for such practices is only sanctioning this reality. And it's not a fad, it's something that is getting stronger and stronger. On the other hand, you can see in the last couple of years the success of DeFi, decentralized finance, that has proven that tokens are an essential and reliable means and legal brick in the construction of traders' economies. It's as if you are discussing the idea of having shares in a company. The notion of shares is something that everybody knows about. Everybody is familiar with this. If you have a share in a company, it also means that somehow you own a small part of the company. Now, it would make no sense if by owning a part of the company, you would mean going to the company's office and slice a bit of a desk in one of the area of the office. It would make no sense. You wouldn't be able to trade this type of value. And what tokens are actually bringing on the table for every type of trader's economy that goes beyond finance and shares on companies is that the tokenization is the help of liquidity for value, meaning that it makes the passing of value from one hand to the next way easier. And the creation of tokens and their usage in DeFi has been just going up and up in the last couple of years. So this is a trend that has then gone beyond DeFi. There's a lot of people among you who are spending a lot of time on financial apps, whether or not it has to do with crypto. There's been an incredible movement coming up, especially during the pandemic. You can see how people are using Robinhood or eToro apps to do some small-time off-market trading, people who are not professional traders. And this movement is merging together with the usage of social tokens, of crypto, and the emergence of NFTs. So basically, it brings us to a point where you can believe that tokenizing fashion items will or is already turning them into wealth assets. It's an important thing to realize because it means that if you merge together the liquidity that is token trading, meaning the ability to make value flow from one hand to the next in a very easy way. And the practice of what I call trade assumption, which is the consumers who are trading or have an idea of making a profit during their consumption. You end up with a brand new market that is slowly meeting its demand for appropriate tools. I'm going to give you a small example that I've seen first mentioned by the creator of Zora, which is an awesome NFT marketplace with visionary founders. It's the idea of using NFTs as voucher for e-commerce. And I've been digging this more and more. And I believe this is an incredible example of the power of how fashion e-commerce can be profoundly transformed in its viability and sustainability in the forthcoming years by NFT. It's the idea that as a designer or a brand, you're just creating a limited series of an item. So I'm talking about, in this example, real physical items like bags, for instance. So I'm creating 1,000 bags, limited series, and each copy is represented by an NFT on a blockchain. So it doesn't really have to be a digital twin. It's just a representation of the proof of ownership of the bag. And so buyers just come here, and when they buy a copy of the bag, they don't receive from the get-go the physical object. The physical object is still in the factory from your manufacturer or your designer's factory. But as a buyer, when I buy a copy, I receive the NFT that represents my ownership of this bag. So why would I do that? Why can't I just do a regular e-commerce experience like that? Well, actually, I can. If I want to own the physical object, I'm having like a Dior bag or some designer's bag, I want to own it. I want to see my face, just caress the leather out of it. I can, because I can use the NFT just like a voucher. I can redeem it. And when I do, the NFT is burned, meaning it's removed from the blockchain. And in exchange, I receive the physical item. And voila. What that means from an NFT or token point of view is I'm decreasing the number of NFT related to this item on the blockchain. So of course, the scarcity of the item is probably increasing, and doing so, hopefully, maybe the value of the item will be driven up. Meanwhile, as a buyer, if I choose to follow through with the idea of fashion elements as wealth assets, I can hold on to my NFTV as an investment. So basically, I bought the designer's bag. I never received it. It's mine. It's stored somewhere in a manufacturer. It's manufactured. It's stored somewhere, maybe, but I don't care about it. What I do care about is the value of this asset. And this is a value that I can hold on, like any investment, like any token. But it's also something that I can trade on NFT marketplaces. If I want to make a benefit, if I want to build a wealth management portfolio out of this stuff, I can. And this is basically a way of adding fashion, just like art, just like real estate, to your wealth management strategy. But in this situation, this context, you, a fashion expert, can actually use your expertise to create your wealth. So it puts you in a situation where instead of just, betting on things you don't understand and giving it to the middleman you don't really trust, but don't really have a choice to do otherwise, you can actually take the matter into your own hand, make your own choices, and you can actually drive those choices based on your ideas, ideology, and basically it gives you a stronger voice in a brand's sustainability management overall. So as a designer, what are the advantages of doing so? Basically, there's fairness. The idea of getting money out of NFT-based elements means that you can create the smart contracts, the programs that are holding the NFT together. You can create them to ensure that they will automatically and forever give you a fair royalty for every resale on marketplaces and on markets of the NFT representing your bags. So basically, this is solving one of the issues that we're seeing with secondhand fashion markets, meaning that designers are never seeing money coming out from resale. It's very, very uncool. If you think about designers who are designing sneakers, I don't know, for instance, Kanye West is designing his Yeezys. They're sold at certain amount on the first-hand market, and you will never see any dollar out of the resale. And a lot of people are actually making more money because they are creating the demand by holding more and more of it. So basically, it also serves as a price discovery tool because you've been selling stuff and you have a photography of the offer and demand of your product on the market. So it gives you an idea of how much you are able to sell the next items. Also, it's very important here. It gives you a very important tool for supply chain sustainability, because if this type of ordering actually works, it means that you can see and forecast the actual demand for redeemed item, meaning that if there's more holding than redeeming, you can actually adapt your actual production and avoid producing more than your client actually demand. So that's an important part of it. Also, it's a marker measuring tool. You can use it to actually give your brand a sense of cultural value, where we are right now and how can we deal with that. Just like when social media emerged, it's a product discovery tool, because a brand could actually foray into the multiverse or the digital world with a digital only type of piece. And then if this piece meets a lot of success, it could actually milk the success by turning this digital piece into a physical one that is backed by the same idea. And that way, it's a good way to milk and recycle interesting ideas that would not have seen the light of the day if they were only physical. And this way you get multiversal products for real, because just like my colleague said earlier, the very idea of having an NFT is being able to bridge the gap between the universes. And this way, if you have a physical object that is bound to an NFT, why not use the same NFT to actually give you the keys to a correlated object in a digital world? And to me, I like to see it as a possible anti-fast fashion, because it sort of brings back notions of value in the fashion industry. It fosters practices into milking a longer value chain by the cycle of things that lessens the need to create more. So you're doing this in a very valorizing way and not incriminating, because basically within this game is the incentivization. You're not telling people what they should do, but people are excited to play the game. And so they're doing this themselves. So instead of asking more and more products, they are eyeing that one product that they are investing in to maybe take some value, some verifiable value in the forthcoming years. And also, it's kind of a new legal brick in the fashion business, because I don't really know where this is going to lead us. Will it be something that will curb hyper-consumerism, or will it increase it? It's really up to the crypto native generation that's coming forward. And also for us stakeholders in the industry, it's important to really properly drive this car and this engine in a way that makes big stakeholders in the regular physical, non-blockchain, non-NFT fashion industry, so that they don't mess around with it in a way that could kind of cripple this possibility. It's also one of the key elements that could promote alternative consumption models for fashion, like digital fashion, virtualization, everything that DressX is all about. And of course, because it's brand new, it could create and spawn a lot of new role, new job description to meet new need. So for the naysayers, I just want to say that it could be pure investment. If you never touch the bag, who cares? Because you're actually investing. Maybe you don't really want a bag. Maybe you want to invest, and you invest in the value and the creative value of a house you like. That doesn't mean you really want to own and walk around with a bag, but it could work with shoes or dresses or whatever. And it can still be touched. Anyway, it can still be turned into regular e-commerce, so you can actually get back the actual element for yourself. And of course, if you see the emergence of the digital only fashion, that is the reason why we're here right now. It's for me, it's a telltale sign that this will not be a problem at all. And the idea of marketplace collapsing, the new marketplaces collapsing with all my value I invested with that. We hear a lot of bubble collapsing in anything related to blockchain. We've had a crypto winter before. Well, it's very simple. If you implement NFTs as crypto media, which is a concept that has been formalized again by the founders of Zora, and that you can read about on specified Reddit forums, the idea of crypto media in a nutshell, the important part is the NFT itself, the smart contract, the program that holds the NFT together and make it alive on the blockchain, is also bundled together with every information on past financial transaction and every possible new financial transaction related to that NFT. Meaning that in this situation, marketplaces are just mere interfaces, and NFTs themselves are the entity that enable all the transactions. So if one marketplace just falls down, another one can just pop in, and just continue to provide a user interface for people who just want to interact and pursue their investments. So basically, as long as you have a blockchain running, you have this possibility of tokenized fashion being able to run. So I'd like to finish this presentation with a quote that I'm using Standing on the Shoulders of Giant, a quote from Lukso's white paper. Marjorie, I know you're in the panel. I really love what you guys are doing right now. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your quote, but basically in the white paper, there's something that struck me that says, the move towards a future where every lifestyle houses will be a technological houses is inevitable. And I strongly believe this is true. And thanks, everyone.
David, thank you so much for such a great presentation. We had this discussion about new models of NFT, and it's really great that you bring this topic. Thank you so much. We have to continue to move with our speakers, and I wanted to welcome Marjorie. I'm really happy that you are here today with us and that you can participate. And yeah, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And this is such a great introduction because David really set the stage. Thank you very much. You started with the quote that I don't know if this is destiny, but I was going to start with that quote actually. Very similar. I haven't used it in a long time. Not exactly that quote, but kind of, you will see, I'm about to do it. So thank you very much. You make my life easier. So there we go. It was a wonderful presentation, by the way. So here we go. So I think we have so far an incredible overview around NFTs and the state of NFTs and all of that. So my presentation is a bit different. I could have come with a very heavy engineering update on why we're using proof of stake instead of proof of work. And I think we can answer those questions in a different panel, but I just wanted to kind of revisit the story of Lukso and why we decided to be Lukso in the first place. So mine and my co-founders Fabian vision was to create this blockchain for a new creative economy. We kind of saw this tendency of, the next super desirable asset class is not going to be cryptocurrencies, but it's going to be an economy tokenized and based on creative goods that we want to experience, that we want to buy, that we want to have fun with. As fun as Bitcoins and stuff like that are, still very beautiful product, consumer goods is the paramount. And once, as David said, once those products have an identity, they become assets that we can trade. And then we are looking at a complete new economy. So we thought we want to build this network that is not focusing in financial use cases. So we were a bit of the rebels in our own eyes in the blockchain space, in the sense that we were really thinking about how can we make the technology really accessible and easy to use for creatives, and kind of demystifying, the mythos of blockchain. So as I said, we saw this convergence, right? We see this convergence in the sense of we see the creative industries converging, creatives that are moving across disciplines, the borders between those professions are melting, and between those in that convergence is the fact that eventually every single company will be a technology company, and there will be no way to kind of get out of and have a business in the future if you are not a technology company. What will differentiate you is basically the quality of the product and what is the final outcome, but we will all need technology. And we know by 2025, half of the world's buying power is going to be distributed between Gen Zs and millennials. That meaning that really almost 100% digital native cohort is going to be controlling half of the world economy. Actually, I think that number is an underestimate, and I think it's going to be much larger than that by 2025. And that means that we are having a consumer group that has completely different expectations, and what aspirational is and what we're looking to buy is potentially completely different than what has been the hottest products in the last 100 years. And then Fabian and I realized, it's going to be 100% digital ecosystem, and seeing that it's going to be 100% digital, the ownership and the authenticity of those digital goods is paramount, and obviously the ability to own it. So we all know Vitalik's inspiration for creating Ethereum was that his favorite character in World of Warcraft was taken out. And he thought centralization just sucks. So he wanted to start decentralization. And we understand that owning your digital goods, the more time we spend in digital spaces such as this, or a proper immersive game, the ownership and the time and the money that we're spending in those places is real. And then it comes down to the biggest piece of the puzzle, which is the identity. So when we talk about an NFT, we're talking nothing but the identity of a digital product, meaning that we can own it, that identity is ownable, is transactable, I can have it on my possession and under my control, right? And then we are moving completely away from the economy that we understand now in the digital world, where we have gaming houses 100% owning the products that they're giving us access to. So that identity piece is the most important one. And this is my co-founder. I use his screenshots because I like him very much. And this is basically his internet presence, right? Within the blockchain community and the developers, they respect him, they know what his Twitter handle is, etc. So that point of reference in the internet right now is quite scattered. And when we spend a lot of time in a digital space, obviously that identity is super important. And that applies also for goods, either 100% physical or 100% digital goods. We want to have those identities existing, being transactable and being verifiable. And when we do that, basically where we are creating our products to have interactive memories with futuristic depth, meaning that we can record data within those identities, and those identities through time, those NFTs will continue to carry and recording information. So it will not be only like, I remember when I was 27 and I bought my first Chanel handbag in Paris. You will be able to verify each of those things, and not only that first moment, but all of the other things we can potentially record through time. And in order to make all of this very beautiful, poetical, kind of vision coming through, Fabian and I identify like the key pieces. And we saw an incredible need within the blockchain space to actually have a place where we can issue and create identities in a very simple way. So the ownership, the creation of those NFTs effectively is starting from the issuance, who issues the NFTs, and then how can I issue them? So we proposed this standard called ERC 725, and we created this interface called Universal Profile. So at this point, all of this is still in beta, but basically what it is, this is the profile in this example of Karina's Night Marketplace. Is basically, this is the identity of our marketplace. And every product that we have ever sold, we have registered or co-registered with our partners on this platform. So basically what happens is we go to a checkout, a click-through process in which we create an identity for our brand, for our marketplace. That identity has a unique identifier. That unique identifier comes with a cute identicon. And from that place, it becomes that unique digital identifier on the blockchain where people can actually reference that this product was sold or not by the dematerialized in the future. And then from that place, we can also issue the NFTs in a very simple way. The beauty about universal profiles and all of the other blockchain standards together that Lukso is proposing in order to enable this creative economy is that there is no need to be a crypto wizard. There's no need for knowing how to manage your private keys. So we have lowered kind of like that barrier of entry to make it very simple for creators to actually enter that economy. And from that point, from their identity, and from issuing those digital goods, those NFTs, or those digitals for a physical good, then entering the market, either sending the NFT to a marketplace or to their own platform for when they're selling. And then obviously the core of those identities is that they're always the access key to all of the different utilities that NFT can give you. So if it's the access to a specific game or getting dressed digitally, etc., all of those different pieces of access should be part of the ownership of the NFT and should be platform agnostic. So either you are buying in DressX and you want to trade in a different platform, etc., you should be able to do that under the same identity. And obviously this is all open source and development that can be verified and implemented by by anyone. So these are a little bit of the layers that Lukso sees. So for us, the core of our business is the blockchain infrastructure. So we continue to be a Ethereum sister chain. So we believe Ethereum is the de facto, at the moment, the highest standard in blockchain technologies, but just one network cannot rule them all. And that's why we believe in that future of Internet of blockchains, in which you will have several, networks co-living in the internet, kind of like supporting different use cases and catering to a different group of people. So that's where Lukso comes in. Then the second part of our value proposition, what is very important for us, is that standard layer that I was talking about before. And it's those identities, how identities and how assets look on the blockchain. How can we make sure that we as a community achieve consensus around how those assets are supposed to look like? And then we have interoperability between all of the different environments, which is super important. And then on top of that comes the application layer, in which basically anyone can use those different pieces of technology to build their own application and solution. And we believe in this decentralized future, in this digital economy, the sense of like competition will be very different. And I think there will be a lot of community-driven efforts to support this new economy, a lot of co-opetition instead of competition. And I think, when we see a market that will be worth trillions and trillions of dollars, that will outdo by several layers of magnitude the current fashion ecosystem and the current lifestyle consumption, we understand, that there doesn't have to be such an aggressive competition, but there's chance for new ways of having a prosperous economy. And then obviously the last layer is that interface that the users get in touch with. So this is the latest update of Lukso. So we are going to launch our mainnet, and together with the mainnet, all of the little pieces of technologies that are required, including the standards, etc., towards the end of this year. So we are working really hard. We are building and implementing things that have never been implemented before. And one of those things is the fact that we are going to be a proof of stake mainnet. So we will be the first network, even before Ethereum, to implement Casper as a consensus algorithm. And we know that by transitioning away from proof of work, as Olga was saying at the beginning, we are considerably more sustainable. So we are around 90 to 95% less energy consuming, which is a tremendous thing. What we all need to understand is that blockchain technology is in its infancy, and it will continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to get better. But we have to make sure that there is a collective effort between the players in the industry to kind of like support good behavior and good tech development. And it requires a lot of like community consensus around what are the best practices and what are the standards that we should use that make, for a real, in the one hand, for a very, flourishing economy, but in the other hand, it really supports, the values we all stand for. So Lukso is going to be the first Casper proof of stake blockchain. With that is going to come our set of smart contract standards and interfaces that will effectively enable any creator, any brand to enter that creative economy, create those profiles for themselves, for their brand, and then start issuing goods. They will be accessible in any of the marketplaces and any of the parts of the economy, as long as they adopt the same standards. And then I have to put this slide here at the end, at last minute, just for Pierre, because he was talking about the wallet. So Lukso is putting out our own wallet. Obviously, it's open source. Anybody will be able to verify the code. And this is like our baby, our crown jewel, because this has been our vision since the beginning, is to have that wallet that is not to hold your crypto, but is to own your lifestyle consumption, to hold those NFTs that are a lot of fun, to hold, from, your digital sneaker to your digital garment from DressX, to a jumper from the Dematerialized, from all of these different, NFTs that we love and care, from fashion, from lifestyle, from art, in one place where you can discover, you can experience, and obviously everyone on this app will have an universal profile, at Web3 effectively profile and identifier that will really give them access to buying and selling NFTs. And the idea is to have this as simplified and as easy to use as possible for anyone. So that's our goal. At the end of this year, we will launch our mainnet running on the Casper consensus algorithm, and we basically invite anyone who is a creator, who is a designer, who wants to enter the digital market, who doesn't know how to monetize their work, doesn't know how to start with NFTs, how do I register? Like, that's the community that we want to cater for. That's the community we want to serve, and basically make it really, really easy for all of them to enter the market. So yeah, we are Lukso. We will be, launching and coming with a lot of news towards the end of the year. And hopefully, we will together power a very, very exciting new economy that will, fundamentally change the way we consume products.
Marjorie, thank you so much for such a great presentation. We're a little bit late on the schedule, so we will skip the question part and we will come back to the questions in the end of the summit during the panel discussion. So right now we're going to move to our next slide, and I want to present you Alex de Vries, a founder of Digiconomist, a website who's writing news about financials and economics of Bitcoin. And if you want to know about the energy consumption of Bitcoin or Ethereum, go directly to the Digiconomist site. There are a lot of data. So Alex, hello, happy to see you.
Yes.
Just a very small note. When I met Alex and when we had the very first discussion, in the end of this discussion, I invited him to participate in the summit, and Alex told me that he never thought that he's going to present on the Fashion Tech Summit, and that his work will be connected with the fashion. So hi, it's so a pleasure to see you here.
Yes, same, and indeed, I feel like the odd one out, but actually I am not, and I will show that in the coming minutes. Let me just try and...
Yes, I can hear you, and you can hear me now as well. Perfect.
So, can you see my screen?
Natalia, can you mute yourself, please? Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I can hear you, and we can see your slide. Please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Yes. So indeed, I did not expect to be talking about digital fashion, but at some point it got related to my favorite topic, being the sustainability of blockchain technology. And the subjects got together as NFTs are launched on top of blockchains. So the title of this presentation is The Dirty Secret of NFTs. And I'm going to present some shocking statistics, and then during the course of the presentation, towards the end, I will show you that it's not all that bad. So just a little bit of expectation management, but I will definitely start with the shocker first. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. And I first want to talk a bit about the carbon footprint of regular clothing. Now, depending on the type of clothing, a t-shirt can be up to 9-10 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, if we're talking about digital fashion, then we expect that carbon footprint to be a lot lower because there is not the same manufacturing process going on in the background. So theoretically speaking, it should be really good from a sustainability perspective to do digital fashion. Now, the shocking part is that if we look at an NFT, the carbon emissions relating to an NFT can actually be quite extreme. And this is a little bit of an outdated data set. This was produced back in December. By now it's a lot worse, but this shows that an NFT can have a carbon footprint 20 times greater than a regular t-shirt. So that is really extreme. And you might wonder, how did that happen? How do we manage to do something digitally and still have a carbon footprint more than 20 times greater than a real product? Well, the reason for that is that most NFTs are built on Ethereum. And Ethereum is a public blockchain that runs on what is known as proof of work mining. A very technical term. I'm hoping to explain that in a little bit more accessible language in the coming minute. Because in this type of system, any action or transaction gets processed into a new block before it gets added to the underlying blockchain. A blockchain is literally a chain of blocks filled with transactions or actions. For example, those actions can be minting an NFT, trading an NFT, stuff like that. If miners in this network create a new block, they can get a substantial reward for that. But there's a very big but. It's not easy to make a new block for a proof of work based blockchain. And that's actually made purposely that difficult. So what these protocols require is that before a new block can be added to a blockchain, miners first have to participate in what is effectively a massive game of guess the number. And they first have to guess a correct winning number before they are allowed to add the next block to the blockchain. In Ethereum, all miners are making 600 trillion guesses every day, non-stop. This is literally going on every day, non-stop, every second, 600 trillion guesses. And you have millions of devices all around the world contributing to that process. And that's where the energy consumption of these proof of work based blockchain are coming from. And the more valuable the underlying protocol, so let's say the price of Ethereum goes up, it means that the miners in the background get a lot bigger reward because they are paid in Ethereum. And they also tend to use a lot more devices in this specific process that ultimately consume a whole lot of energy. And it's that energy consumption that ultimately leads to a huge carbon footprint for anything that is built on this type of networks. We have a little bit of insight in how miners are distributed, but in this case, we only have that information on Bitcoin. And just like Ethereum, Bitcoin is a proof of work blockchain, and Bitcoin is the biggest one, except you can't build NFTs on top of Bitcoin. But nevertheless, let's take it as a benchmark for where Ethereum miners are going to be, because ultimately it doesn't matter if you're mining Bitcoin or Ethereum. All these miners have the same problem, which is that the machines they are running require a whole lot of energy, and they all need the same cheap sources of energy. So they all want to be in the same locations, regardless of whether you're mining Bitcoins or Ethereum. Energy expenses are by far your biggest cost. So what we have seen in Bitcoin is that most of these miners have historically located to a country like China, and specifically the northern part of China, where they leverage a lot of an abundance of coal in the province of Xinjiang. They can get electrical energy for just 3 to 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is an extremely low rate. And you might have heard that miners can get even lower rates in other countries. Iran is on this map as well. If you get oil-based energy in Iran, you can pay as little as 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So miners locate to where they can get really cheap power, and it happens to be locations that are rather dirty, as particularly the Xinjiang coal mines. So if we look at Bitcoin, that also results in a massive carbon footprint for the Bitcoin network alone. In this map, it says around 70 million metric tons of carbon per year in total. That number is more than the entire amount of carbon savings as a result of deploying electric vehicles around the world. And in Ethereum, the impact is about half of this number. So that would come down to around 35 million metric tons of carbon, which is still a tremendous amount, considering that the amount of carbon we save with electric vehicles is around 50. Here's the Ethereum footprint as shown on my own index. It is a little more optimistic than the numbers I just showed, and there's a little bit of variation in estimating these numbers because there's different approaches to do so. It doesn't change that ultimately you have a pretty substantial carbon footprint relating to these systems, and more importantly, the big shocker is in the bottom part, because you have a huge footprint relating to the activity going on these networks. For example, a carbon footprint of almost 50 kilograms of carbon for a single Ethereum transaction. This doesn't list the carbon footprint of minting an NFT, but I did some calculations recently, and just putting an NFT on top of a blockchain, the carbon footprint of that would be around 130 kilograms of carbon. And that's ultimately because what you do is you take the proportional contribution of that NFT to the entire network, and then you only have to multiply it with the total carbon footprint to get a carbon impact. One additional thing is that I'm now talking about energy consumption and carbon footprints, but that's not the entire story here. In fact, if we're looking at the sustainability issues of proof of work-based blockchains, there is a lot more to be worried about. The machines that are used put a whole lot of strain on the global semiconductor supply chain. And you can imagine that, well, very recently, if you've tried to get a graphic card, you've probably been unable to, or you had to pay at least 3 times the common market rate. They've all been sold out because everyone was getting them to mine Ethereum. And if we're making a whole lot of additional machines for the purpose of mining Bitcoin, mining Ethereum, that has consequences that are hard to quantify, but definitely impact the ability to produce personal electronic devices or electric vehicles and such. And there's only a fixed amount of chips available globally. And then you also have to consider that those machines down the line, depending on what type of algorithm you're using, might not be repurposable. And we've seen a message very early this year that NVIDIA was going to make specialized Ethereum mining cards. Those graphic cards would no longer be capable of producing anything but Ethereums, so they wouldn't be repurposable anymore as graphic cards. But if you do that, then of course you also introduce a big pile of e-waste down the line. That's a very delayed problem when you're talking about these currencies, because what happens if the price goes up? First of all, the demand for machines goes up, impacts the semiconductor supply chain, then the energy consumption go up when they start running, and then in, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years, when they're no longer profitable, they get discarded and become electronic waste. So that's not even the entirety of it, because I already mentioned mining activities in Iran. These activities help the Iranian government evade sanctions. So there's also an international safety element. And I suppose if you're in the fashion industry, I've heard that the province of Xinjiang is also a big issue when it comes to cotton production because of human rights violations. And in that sense, it is interesting to learn that the same province is also supplying this type of networks with a lot of power. So you actually have the same controversies as you would have with producing regular, at least cotton-based clothing in this case. Now, the good news, as I promised, is that there is a fix for all of this. In fact, the problem I discussed is specific to proof of work based blockchains, and Ethereum right now is running on proof of work, but there is plenty of cryptocurrencies that are already running on alternatives that don't require the same computational effort. And Ethereum itself is working on implementing such a change. They, in fact, aim to implement and migrate to proof of stake by the end of this year or at the start of next year, which would, if they succeed, reduce the energy consumption of the network by around 99.95%. So here's the good news. Despite the fact that NFTs right now are mostly built on Ethereum, and Ethereum is absolutely not a sustainable platform, it is absolutely aiming to be later on, which could solve its problems. And if you're building this type of products today and you can't wait for this migration to happen, you also have alternatives in the form of blockchain platforms that are already running on such a greener algorithm. My only message there is that, of course, when you are launching a product like this, you have to consider this before you actually launch the product. So best of luck with that. That's all for my presentation.
Alex, thank you so much. We're a little bit behind with our schedule. So like I said, we will skip the question part and we will keep it till the end of for the panel discussion. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, and this is amazing Isabel Boyamke, and she is a fashion model and the founder of Isadope. Hello, Isabel, are you here with us?
I am here.
Hi, nice to see you. How are you?
Me too. I'm so excited. This has been so, I mean, I've learned so much already, and I've been quite into NFTs and energy consumption for a while, but this is great. Okay, if you can just share the presentation for me.
Yeah, just a second. Oh, I have to find it quickly. Okay, just give me 2 seconds.
I don't, other people's slides are a lot better than mine, but so don't judge me, but hopefully they'll be informative.
Oh, here it is. Just a second. This one. Here. Can you see it?
Yes. All right, so as you guys just heard Alex saying, NFTs have a dirty little secret. Mining a single piece of digital art and adding it to the blockchain to make it traceable uses a lot of electricity, as we just saw, and so do all the other transactions necessary to sell or buy them. Now, most people don't know this, but electricity is actually a secondary form of energy. It's not readily available in nature, so we have to create it by using a primary form. And unfortunately, around the world, most electricity today, around like 84% of electricity today, is created by burning fossil fuels, which, as we know, releases a lot of planet warming emissions and causes air pollution, which already kills at least 5 million people every year. So even though it's hard to know the exact amount of greenhouse gases emitted for each NFT, and I think Alex gave us some pretty good numbers, we know that Ethereum, the platform that's mostly used nowadays, uses about as much electricity as the entire country of Libya, which is, you know, quite a lot of electricity and quite a lot of emissions. And it's also hard to know exactly what percentage of that electricity comes from low carbon or clean sources, since this depends on the country where data centers that mine Ethereum are located. And as we just saw, a lot of them are located in China, and China uses a lot of coal, which is unfortunate. So it's very tempting, and I heard this conversation a lot, especially on social media. People want to shut down NFTs or even cryptocurrencies altogether, especially within the climate change community and the sustainability community, since we are in a race to decarbonize over the next few decades, and their high use of fossil fuel generated electricity seems to be opposed to that goal. But I see it differently. I'm a little bit more of an optimist. I think that cryptocurrencies and NFTs are really just another way humans have found to use energy. And in the case of NFTs especially, it's finally allowing artists to take ownership of their work and sell their art on their own terms. And it's also finally financially rewarding some artists who have been creating digital content without any compensation for years. Quite literally everything we do requires energy. And as we move towards a more digital future, our energy consumption will just keep increasing. The truth is that energy usage in itself, I don't think, is intrinsically a bad thing, so long as the sources are clean. So I would like to suggest that instead of focusing on preventing the use of these technologies, and you can change the slide now, Olga. We just push for them to use only clean energy. Examples of that would be solar, wind, nuclear, hydro, or geothermal, like I have on the slide. So I have focused over the last year on promoting nuclear power as a way to solve climate change and energy inequality around the world. And I think that nuclear is actually the perfect solution to cryptocurrencies mining issues. So data centers, as Alex just said as well, and as we know, they need to be connected to a source of electricity all day long, and they need a reliable and abundant supply of it, because they're constantly solving problems, and the more problems are solved, the more energy they consume. While solar and wind are great, they are intermittent. What that means is that they don't work all the time. So if a data center was connected to a solar or wind farm, it would need some form of backup in case the sun or the wind went down. So either it could be the grid itself, and depending on the country where that's located, let's say that's in China, even if the data center is connected to a solar farm, it would still need to be connected to the grid, and then that electricity would be dirty, or batteries or diesel generators in a lot of cases. Hydro and geothermal are more reliable, but they are geographically dependent. So you cannot build a hydropower dam or geothermal plants anywhere. As we know, hydropower dams only can be built in places where there's a lot of water and some height as well. And then geothermal right now, mostly in places that have high volcanic activity. Nuclear is the only source of carbon-free electricity that is on all the time and that can be built pretty much anywhere. And nuclear power also creates an immense amount of power in very, very small spaces. For example, a single nuclear reactor can make enough electricity for 1.5 million people. To get the same amount from wind, you'd need around 400 industrial scale wind turbines. Or if you wanted to get that same amount of electricity from solar, you would need around 3 million solar panels. So by using nuclear power, we could build mining centers anywhere and have reliable, clean, and abundant electricity to power them, only using a very small piece of land. So you can change the slide now. The truth is, I think that together we can dream of and build a future of abundant, reliable, and clean energy for all. And of course, mint our NFTs with less environmental impact. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Isabel. It's a great presentation, and I remember you were quoting the mayor of Miami, who is actually inviting everyone who want to mine the cryptocurrency to the Miami, and he wants to power that mining with the nuclear power.
Yes, they have a nuclear power plant in Florida, and he was just proposing that people should go and build data centers around the power plants to utilize that clean energy, again, 24/7 on all the time.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And I want to present another speaker who is going to cover the renewable sources of energy, and he's going to speak about solar energy and solar panels. Hi, Scott. Scott is a founder of Liquid Star, and Scott is explaining Liquid Star as a Robin Hood meets Uber of electricity.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you
Fine.
for joining us.
No problem. May I please share my screen?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can do it.
Great. Great. So can everyone see my screen? Hopefully you can. Hi, I'm Scott, the founder of, or one of the founders of Liquid Star. As Olga mentioned, it's where we call it where Robin Hood meets Uber for electricity. So just a little about me and my interest in the NFT space. So I actually first got involved in NFTs back in 2018, and I had a startup that was trying to create augmented reality NFTs for clothing and products. And one of the things I like to talk about in this space is, sometimes it's better to be on time than it is to be right and early. And so I actually had pitched this concept of augmented reality NFTs to Christie's Hong Kong to go along with artwork. And I was met with absolute crickets, and they just were confused. So really just kind of like a little message that NFTs are a thing. It's here to stay. The market may go up or down, but really there's a big opportunity there. And then more recently in the space, I actually put together, I think, one of the first kind of holographic and augmented reality NFTs, and that was done with an NBA player and a hologram company called Portal. So I'll show that. That's me with the ring. That's the real kind of championship ring. This is,
damn, this is crazy.
This is the kind of digital recreation that we made of that ring. And then, yeah, so, and then this is kind of what we used to display it in this portal sort of hologram. So why I bring this up, and I think it's kind of relevant just to the overall presentation, is that NFTs are going to be a thing, and some of the work that companies like DressX are doing, where they're actually giving you new ways to sort of display NFTs. I think that's going to be something critical moving forward. So what do I really do? So I spend most of my time as the founder of LiquidStar, and LiquidStar sort of came from this idea that the reason why people don't have access to electricity is actually strictly financial. It's a completely solved problem, and it's insane that 1 out of every 7 people on the planet doesn't have electricity today. And the amount of deaths that come from lack of access to electricity, it's astronomical. It's in the millions. So more people die from that than they do coronavirus, for example. So that was really the approach that we took to kind of look at this space. And really we started with this concept called Blue Maru. So we were actually, our team was actually working with the UN back in 2017 to create a blockchain enabled pollution sensor, where as the pollution kind of happens, that information is written to blockchain, specifically on Ethereum. And it's just kind of a global way to really hold people accountable for that. Here's some of the prototypes that we put together for that. And what we kind of realized, I think one of the other speakers mentioned, is that in the blockchain space, a key part of that was missing. And that's this concept of an identity protocol. So how do you identify a device, a person, and a company, and sort of create that loop? So some other members of our team, they've started this company called BlockPass, which is a blockchain identity protocol. But in doing that, we decided, like, okay, now we have this identity rail. How do we actually apply this in a way to help people? And that's kind of where we came to LiquidStar. So as I mentioned, 1 out of every 7 people still don't have access to electricity. And when you start to think about, why that problem exists, it's really just a lack of will and frankly, a lack of capital. But the main issue is that everything else people talk about stems from electricity, right? So everything from food, water, health, education, they all can be increased exponentially with that access. And currently, there are a lot of people who don't have it. So beyond the grid is very, very complex, and it's a very difficult problem to solve, right? Because you think about it, in Nigeria, for example, it costs $150 per meter to build overhead wires. That cost in the US is $172. And in the US, we can barely afford to maintain our grid. So how is a country like Nigeria going to only pay $20 less per meter to build something, and then also have the ability to maintain, operate it, et cetera? It's just an impossible challenge. Then there are other more local kind of issues. So, 40 to 60% of all electricity generated in most emerging markets is straight up stolen, whether from people kind of stealing electricity via wiring around meters, people actually stealing the physical infrastructure, or from different people in the value chain not paying other people. It's a tremendous amount of it goes to waste. And then finally, the other part of it is that currently how people are working with electricity, the way they consume it is actually similar to how we consume sort of gasoline here in the East. In the US. So you have people walking like 1 to 2 kilometers to pay 45 US cents to charge their phone. So obviously this is a very complicated problem that has like supply chain issues, monetary issues, etc. And overall, I think this is a very interesting sort of thing from Twitter about the energy space, period. Actually, most of the $700 billion worth of investment from the private equity sector into the energy space, the actual IRR of those projects is negative now. And so that's very concerning when you start to think about a lot of these other, technologies that are coming on board. And one of the things that kind of I've noticed, and a couple other people in the space, is that at the moment there's this kind of assumption that like we are ready to switch to purely renewables. And when I say renewables, I'm speaking specifically of like wind, solar, I guess technically hydro, et cetera. Actually, our grid is not currently set up to switch to that. And so it's just an important thing to remember for later is that a lot of the technologies and a lot of the greenification that people are pushing for, we actually aren't ready for at the moment. And that's primarily because the returns on a lot of these projects is negative. So it's going to be harder to get financing. And so in our market for LiquidStar, really people are using 4 different sources of quote unquote energy. So they have small solar home systems, which if you're not familiar, that's actually like a lease to own and kind of predatory business model. So people with the small solar home systems, they have to pay like 20 days, at least 20 days per month, or the system shuts off. They have, and that 20 days is a minimum of 35 cents per day. And over the lifetime of the device, they end up spending like 2 to 3x the value of the device. And it's not a device that they can scale up or scale down. And it's obviously a device that loses its charge and ability to take charge over time. So it's a terrible investment. And then you also have a lot of people with diesel generators. One very interesting fact about that, just to put in perspective how important they are to electricity, there are actually more diesel generators in Nigeria than there are people in Australia. So just kind of like a fact to contextualize like how bad some things are. And Nigeria, again, there's more energy produced by more electricity produced by diesel generators than their entire grid at the moment. So just kind of like magnifies the problem. And then you also have people that are using kerosene, and obviously that's dangerous just from inhaling the black carbon. A lot of people die from that. We were talking to a woman in Nigeria, and actually like a kerosene lamp burned down her home and actually killed one of her daughters. And then you have this situation, I believe it's a picture from India, where it's just people hacking in and stealing electricity. A lot of people die from this, and it actually makes delivering electricity hard, because it's hard for the energy producer to figure out how much energy is needed to be produced at certain times, et cetera. So what's our solution? We call LiquidStar. We have these waypoints. They're solar powered shipping containers, have 18 panels on top and another 12 panels that you can slide out. And really what this is it's a way to maximize the revenue associated with energy infrastructure. And so I think where I might depart from some of the other speakers is I actually believe that proof of work systems are critical to increasing electricity access. And in the future, they're going to be critical to maintaining our current grid for the energy providers. So when I used to say this, no one really cared or understood. Their eyes kind of glazed over. And then Elon made a couple of tweets about green Bitcoin, and then Square and ARK Investment put out this paper that's basically validating kind of like what we'd been talking about for the last 2 years. Like actually Bitcoin is the key and proof of work. So I believe the last speaker, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, where she was talking about how you could use nuclear. I actually believe it's looking at it from the other angle. Crypto is the way to actually push forward this greenification of our grid, because it gives the energy producers an additional way to generate revenue from energy. And so if you think about, to take it to like a macro philosophical level, the currency of the universe is actually just energy. Everything that you do requires energy. And what you have, and I believe the speaker before me said this as well, and what you have in crypto is actually a way to turn that energy into some sort of tradable money. And that's specific, I think, to proof of work systems. So for LiquidStar, what we're looking at is 3 markets. So first, we're looking to work with the off-grid 1 billion people. And our personal goal is we want to be responsible for solving 10% of UN SDG number 7. The second market where we're in conversations in Australia, here in the US, is deploying our solutions for natural disaster. And the third is kind of like this futuristic vision where it's like, where else can you put a waypoint? What does it mean to have this sort of charging infrastructure in space, right? Like those are kind of where we see the 5, 10, 15, 20 year progression. And so in thinking about that, what we decided was like, actually the goal is to optimize electrons, right? That's society is just going to move towards that. Energy is going to be the underlying sort of resource for everything. And in certain respects, it already is. And really, we just think about our solution as like, how do we help individuals optimize and increase the utility of the electrons or sunlight that we're getting to the solar panel? So we really look at it as people can use our rentable batteries to power a variety of devices. We pump and purify water. And then when maybe people aren't using it, we started thinking about, okay, what else can you do? So obviously you have Bitcoin mining, and then you also have the minting of carbon credit NFTs. So we do this with something that we call an energy balance algorithm. And this sort of framework that we have here, you're going to see this start to expand and move to the West. I think one of the places where you're going to see it first is actually Texas, where you're going to have people that are optimizing how they use electrons, right? So is it better for me to mine crypto right now? Is it better for me to actually store this electricity? Or is it better for me to actually deliver this electricity? Algorithms that do this real time at utility level scale here in the US, they're going to be coming in the next probably year or two, if not already in place in Texas. So really our energy balance algorithm looks at, okay, we have the solar panel, we want to charge our rentable batteries to 90%, we want to pump and purify the water tank to 80%, and then now we need to increase our profitability. So we're mining crypto, but at the same time, we're recording how we're doing all of this onto the blockchain using our solar data logger, and we're minting carbon credit NFTs. Why that's valuable is that carbon credit NFTs represent like one of the greatest ways to sort of, I think, help fund some of these projects. At the moment, if a carbon credit to the project, I might get $5. Then someone else will come and buy that from the person who gave me the $5 for 10. Then they'll bundle a bunch of these up, sell it for 30, and then go to the market and maybe sell it for $50, right? And so the actual person who's generating the carbon credit might only see a fraction of that. What these carbon credit NFTs will enable in the future is not only greater pricing transparency, so we can skip some of these middlemen and repackagers, but in the event that it is repackaged, I'm still going to have some percentage of that. So in that example, which would be unfair, where the starting price was $5 and the end price was 50, with carbon credit NFTs, I would still be entitled to 10% of the final sale along the way, and I'd actually make more with those residual sales than the initial. And then finally, the best part about it is that you can be sure that that credit is only used once and then burned. So it's a really big opportunity to do this. And then the concept of tying like green crypto mining into that to say that, okay, let's say this 1 BTC was mined by this waypoint over the year, the energy to mine that BTC, we can confirm with the solar data logger, came 100% or 95% from solar. So we know that this BTC coin is actually sort of a green Bitcoin. And we think in the future, you'll be able to get a premium for that as well. So why is this important? Because realistically, you need to make money in order to solve a lot of these UN SDGs. In fact, in a lot of the countries we're speaking to, the first question they would ask us are you guys a nonprofit? We don't want to work with nonprofits anymore because nonprofits actually distort the market. So the UN is sort of shifting to a for-profit, for-good model for the projects. And when you start to think about that, really the goal is how do I maximize return on these assets but in a way that's not exploiting the individuals. So in our model, what we've done is we've said, okay, we're selling water, we're selling electricity, we're minting carbon credit NFTs, and we're mining Bitcoin. How do we actually increase the inclusivity of this? And actually, we're working on putting this into the smart contract. For every carbon credit NFT that we mint, we're going to give that into a pool to the end users, that value. So if you're using our product and let's say you rent a battery every single day, and you like, just from you alone, you basically save 1 carbon credit NFT, you'll get 34% of that value. You'll get the percentage in the smart contract, et cetera. In the future, when it's more acceptable, we also want to give them 5% of the Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever the crypto is that we're mining. Right now, actually, we're unable to have those conversations because you're not allowed to give people wallets in a lot of these countries at the moment. They want, maintaining their currency is very important. But we know from being on the ground that it's not going to last long. We've had, 4 or 5 contractors where we said like, oh, we can wire you the money. Oh, we can pay you via PayPal. Oh, we can pay you via Western Union. We'll eat the fees. And they all turn us down and they say, no, pay us in Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? The person that told us that back then, it was a $500 thing. When he said that, the Naira was at 350 to $1. Now it's at 500 to 1. We paid him in Ethereum, and he's probably made 10 times off of that than what he would have lost if we had paid him in his local currency. So the people on the ground there, they're very, very aware of this. And I think it will be the case where they're actually going to lead the adoption kind of going around the government. So the other business model that we have, which I think you'll see a lot more actually with companies like Tesla and the cars and stuff, is this: imagine a fire extinguisher that can make money when it's not in use, right? So there are all these assets that actually, could have like solar on them, et cetera, that are just sitting there and they're not in use 99% of the time. So in the disaster relief scenario, you think of like a hurricane, because I'm here in Miami, you think of a hurricane, and what you have is that you might have these diesel generators that are just sitting in an empty lot most of the year. And so what we're saying is, like, you have these diesel generators, why not mine this green crypto, mint carbon credit NFTs, and then when a disaster strikes, you stop all of that and you use that same energy in these portable shipping containers, and you bring that to the affected site. So we have been talking about this a lot, doing a couple pilots with the company in Western Australia. So what Western Australia has about 50,000 people in it, and the area is like almost the size of Europe. So these sort of decentralized solutions are very important for them. And so this is kind of like the progression of like what we've done sort of with LiquidStar. And, here's our sort of where we started with the pollution sensor. And then we really put that into our technical stack. So excuse these slides, these are made by our developer, but basically we created this solar data logger. It's live actually in Japan and in Bahrain as well. And basically what it does is it's connected to the inverter. And as the inverter is generating data about solar output, we're writing that to an oracle, and we're basically putting that onto blockchain at regular intervals. So then for sure that we generated this carbon credit from solar panel. It's like a tamper-proof casing, etc. So we really took that Maru concept, which was an environmental sensor, and we actually have put that into our solution for LiquidStar. And I guess just to wrap up, so our goal for LiquidStar, as I mentioned, is we want to deploy 120,000 waypoints over the next 9 to 10 years, provide electricity to 100 million people, and that will result in us preventing 2 million premature deaths and removing as much as 1 trillion pounds of CO2 from the atmosphere. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was a great presentation and a great use of carbon credit NFT. I really like this idea when we had this discussion with you. Thank you so much. Let's move to our next speaker, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Alex Taylor, a co-founder of Offsetra and a very famous carbon FYI calculator. Hello, Alex.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully that's...
Yeah, it's good. It's working.
Working. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. So yeah, Alex Taylor. I'm one of the co-founders of Offsetra, a UK startup based sort of working in the carbon offset space. I think we're probably most well known for our carbon FYI emissions calculator, as Olga mentioned, but just a bit on Offsetra. So we're a sort of fully remote and digital team founded in 2019. There's 5 of us. I'm based in the UK, here in the UK today in Birmingham, and then we've got members of the team in the US, Germany, and Brazil. So I like to say that we're sort of living the virtues of a lean, clean, and digital team that's fit for a net zero world. And yeah, as someone who's worked in the energy sector for years, it's great to see the sector getting airtime at DressX's Fashion Tech Summit. Similar to Alex, probably never would have expected this a few years ago. Before I sort of get stuck into the carbon FYI stuff, first of all, just wanted to talk a little bit about the work that Offsetra has been doing in collaboration with artists and platforms in the NFT space over the past few months. Our service is really to help people understand their carbon impact, and then using the carbon FYI calculator and then provide them carbon offset options. If they want to compensate for their emissions or make a climate positive investment in a project, a specific project based on the profits that they've made from their NFT sales. So all of these artists on the left hand side have released one or a number of NFTs over the past few months. I'm not sure if they necessarily knew the impacts of proof of work before minting, but when they learned about the impact, they decided to offset to essentially make up for that carbon impact. So all of these artists have also offset at least an order of magnitude higher than the carbon emissions impact associated with their NFT drop as well. Maybe some of them 10 times or 50 times more than their carbon impact. So our most recent offset was with Gucci with their Christie's auction this week for their NFT film Aria, which definitely recommend checking out. But really looking at this list here, I would have to shout out the work of Sven Eberwein. Sven's a digital artist from Germany who's now based in LA, who somehow came across our beta version of Carbon FYI last August. So before we'd fully released it, and it wasn't particularly pretty on the eye at the time, but he saw the value of our work. And he used Carbon FYI to calculate and retrospectively offset the carbon emissions from his wallet address. And then he went on to release this M carbon dioxide piece of work on super rare. So that's the picture at the top left hand of the screen. Poignant piece of work in and of itself. Each black dot on the image represents a kilogram of CO2, and there's a million black dots. But as you see on the bottom right hand corner, the work's got some QR codes, and if you scan these QR codes, it takes you to the public ledger that validates the 1,000 tons of CO2 was offset for this work. So the owner of the work essentially holds the NFT, but also is responsible for those carbon offsets, which I think cost 15 ETH at the time, considerably more now. So yeah, really, for me, I guess this was a bit of a watershed moment. Sven, of course, raised the profile of Offsetra and Carbon FYI's work, which I'm grateful for. But as far as I'm aware, Sven was the first person to auction an NFT where all the proceeds sort of went directly to a philanthropic environmental cause. So respect and commend his vision, and he sort of did it before it was cool, so to speak. I know there's a lot of work being done on this now. So these names here certainly aren't all of the NFT collaborations that we've worked on over the past few months. Not even sure they're necessarily our top 10 or top 12, but I hope it gives a flavour of the work we've done and who we've worked with. Special shout out to the Kate Moss collaboration, as someone from the UK who in their 20s who grew up in the Britpop area couldn't believe it when we offset Kate Moss's NFT. And then just to say, we've also worked with a number of the platforms in the NFT and Ethereum space to offset their emissions. So when we're working with the platform, we'll advise them on their sort of the carbon impact that they've had. We'll run their contracts, calculate their emissions, and then work with them to select carbon offset projects that are based on their preferences, really. So worked with Crypto Voxels, which is a metaverse running on Ethereum, well worth checking out. You can go to the Crypto Voxels page and just start walking around the world. It's pretty awesome, maybe a glimpse into what the future looks like. There's NFT museums on there, there's music events, different events and stuff. So they've retrospectively offset all of their emissions, and then we're working on them on a monthly basis until ETH2 goes live and moves to proof of stake. For obvious reasons, they're sort of wedded to Ethereum at this point. But next up, I should talk about Carbon FYI, because frankly, this has been our biggest contribution in the space. Definitely led to a flurry of conversation and activity. I think it's had some far-reaching ripple effects at this point. I know Mimo Atkin sort of used our numbers to do his calculator, which was quite famous at the time. Thank you, of course, to Alex de Vries, who spoke today for the initial research and analysis into this topic. I've studied all your work in quite a lot of detail. And what Carbon FYI is just an open source emissions calculator that we've built to give an indicative carbon impact of a wallet or a contract address on the Ethereum network. I say indicative because it's very difficult to calculate the specific carbon emissions given the uncertainties of the energy mix and so forth. So an indicative number. And I mean, with each Ethereum wallet, you can track incoming and outgoing transactions extremely easily. All past transactions are, of course, viewable on the blockchain, which is a public ledger. Each transaction on Ethereum that adds a line to the blockchain requires computational power. So gas is the reference to the computational power required by a miner to process the transaction and secure the network. And computational power, of course, uses electricity, which has a carbon impact. So typically when an NFT is auctioned off, there's a number of transactions that happen. First, the piece will be minted, then it will be possibly sent to a holding wallet. Bids may also be received and accepted on-chain. And then after the auction is closed, the piece will obviously be sent to a new owner's wallet. So all of these activities can essentially constitute a transaction on the blockchain, which whether or not they do constitute a transaction on the blockchain would depend on the platform. But if they are happening on layer one, then they'll have a gas use, a gas number attached to it, and therefore a carbon impact. So what we're doing with Carbon FYI, we're working out the carbon impact of the electricity used to push through the Ethereum transactions that have been initiated from a specific wallet or contract. Carbon FYI deploys a best estimate factor for a unit of gas by looking at the total power consumption of the Ethereum network, converts it to an emissions factor, and then disaggregates that down all the way to the per gas level. So by multiplying the gas emissions factor by total gas used by a contract or wallet, you can get that indicative carbon impact of the wallet. To be clear, the methodology proportionally assigns all emissions to end users of the network. So through the Carbon FYI calculator, miners are essentially allocated no responsibility. And then we also don't consider variables such as when a transaction took place or from different types of network activities, so DeFi versus NFT, for example. There are various conversations going on about how to refine this methodology for this work, and I'm not sure there's any right or wrong answers as to how and who emissions should be allocated to. I think at a certain point it almost becomes a question of ethics. Should we allocate emissions to miners? Perhaps, but would they do anything about it? I mean, possibly not. I know there's lots of interesting conversations about sort of collaboration between US-based miners, but would a Chinese miner adopt renewable power if Carbon FYI tells them that their emissions are too high? Possibly not. And then just to say, really, our GitHub is open for feedback on this. This isn't meant to be an opaque or a ring-fenced tool. It's meant to be built for the community. It's been updated already with input from the community, and we're ongoing as an ongoing piece of work trying to refine this and give best guess estimates of what proof of work, Ethereum's proof of work carbon impact is. So if you're interested in learning more, I'd recommend checking out the Carbon FYI page. and you can learn about the data, the specifics of the methodology, and check out the conversation on the GitHub, which is a real deep dive into the topic. Tried really hard to document our logic and communicate why we've done what we've all done. I think that the transparency in the process is really important to sort of build knowledge, and essentially what we're trying to do is inspire action, whether that's shifting to proof of stake or offsetting, etc. We want to sort of try and create change. So this next slide intends to give just an indication of some of the other high-level info that I've come across over the past months in my research. So firstly, just to flag that there are estimates that suggest NFTs have been the source of between 2 and 10% of Ethereum transactions over the past few months. Obviously, this number is variable depending on the market conditions, and 10% would probably be the peak. But just to be clear, NFTs are part of a much larger sort of sector of economic activity within the crypto space. I think when we talk about NFTs, we should be talking about the sort of macro crypto space and thinking about it all together. Been seen an incredible shift to proof of stake platforms since February or so too, and I think this has been driven in large parts because of the concerns relating to carbon impact. The proof of work is fantastic to see. Hiket Nunk, I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but runs on Tezos and is emerging into an incredible community and space for art. Offsetra also working with Codadot on their carbonless campaign, which runs on the Kusama proof of stake network. So there are already efficient proof of stake options that are definitely worth checking out today. And then in terms of the Ethereum ecosystem NFT platforms, so our top end analysis for individual artworks being sold comes in about 250 kilograms CO2. So happy to see that aligns with other speakers today. So you could be a bit more conservative than that 250 kilograms too, if you wanted to think about the lifetime emissions of a single NFT on Ethereum. And then you could, I suppose that's a legacy number though, as a lot of the new sort of upgrades on the platforms are becoming more and more efficient. So nowadays, if one of the platforms was to mint and sell an NFT, those emissions might be lower than that 250 kilogram figure. So there have been various analysis of the carbon impact of the Ethereum NFT platforms themselves. There's a really great GitHub repo out there that details gas usage and carbon impact of every platform, if you can find it. Really great analysis. When I've looked at it, it looks like some of the curated platform lifetime CO2 emissions are up to about 1,000 tons of CO2. Some of those platforms, in fairness, actually already offset their legacy emissions with us. And then the secondary market platform, quite well-known platform, has CO2 emissions of order or two of magnitude higher than that 1,000 tons of CO2. So a big spread, and it really depends on the various platforms. So I've just caveated there that for context, a 747 flight from New York to San Francisco emits around 500 tons of CO2 equivalent. So what we're saying is that the smaller curated platforms have a lifetime CO2 impact equivalent to a couple of flights, New York to San Francisco. Again, secondary marketplaces, orders of magnitude higher, but I hope that's sort of a useful benchmark for you to think about. Those carbon comparisons can often be quite useful. And then I finally have this slide here before I just move on to talk to a couple of specifics around carbon offsetting that I wanted to flag. And these are just sort of my high-level thoughts on the intersection of NFTs, blockchain, and climate that I find myself working in today. I think some of these points have already been covered off, but really there's a lot of work to be done in this space. There's so much space for innovation and creating change. Clearly, proof of work is far too dependent on an energy supply that is dependent on fossil fuels. And given that we're in a world that is trying to become more efficient and less wasteful, this isn't okay. But this isn't a proof of work specific problem. I mean, as a society, we really need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. I think at the macro level, if you look at it, our fossil fuel dependency is just on an upward curve. I think we've increased global dependency on fossil fuels by 10% in the last 10 years. So to Isabel's point and Scott's point, the deployment of clean alternative energy sources is critical. We need to get renewable power, and indeed nuclear is an option to be more competitive than fossil fuels. Evidently, crypto probably needs to stop being part of the problem with respect to fossil fuel consumption. But then I would agree it can viably be part of the solution. And I frankly think what's happened in the NFT space in the past 6 months is pretty inspiring. From a standing start, we've seen millions of dollars raised to support pro-climate charities, as well as carbon offset projects and so forth. Offsetra themselves offset 15,000 tons since March in the NFT space. And the beneficiaries of this money are specifically working on energy and climate problems. It's taken the fossil fuel industry 20 years to get to this point. It's taken the NFT market probably about 6 months. So this momentum can create change and lead to a domino effect across the wider crypto space. I've got a few notes at the bottom of this slide just on my own thoughts on blockchain technologies. I think blockchain technologies could be an enabler of very interesting things in the energy and climate space. The deployment of truly decentralized microgrids can enable the efficient trade of distributed power systems. It could essentially revolutionize our legacy centralized power systems, which is dependent on sort of big fossil fuel generators. So exciting things happening there. And then to Scott's point, blockchain could also really solve a lot of these teething issues that we are seeing in the voluntary carbon markets. Exactly what Scott mentioned, tokenized carbon credits will be the future, something that Offsetra are working on at the moment, and something that we would want to be part of an open source and transparent infrastructure, because the carbon market is essentially opaque. And then talking of the carbon market, I'll whistle through because I know we've run over a little bit, but I should introduce offsetting, because that is a lot of what Offsetra does. And carbon offsetting is really a voluntary commitment from a person or an organization to contribute to a system that's intended to either mitigate future carbon emissions or remove carbon dioxide that has already been emitted. So for all intents and purposes, carbon offsetting is a high integrity avenue for climate finance. And what I mean by this is that when you invest in a verified carbon offset project, you can be confident that your investment is going to go to the project that is working to fix a specific environmental failure. At the moment, the free market doesn't price in the cost of carbon for the goods and services that we purchase. So offsets are an opt-in to fix that market failure. We have some top-down carbon pricing mechanisms in place. So the EU ETS in Europe implicates the power sector and heavy industry emitters, relatively stringent carbon taxes in some Scandinavian countries and emerging tax regimes in other European countries. But really, for much of the economy across much of the world, there's no explicit carbon price. So offsetting, in the absence of an explicit carbon price, is an option for people to sort of opt in, whether it's an artist, a business, an individual. It's taking responsibility of those emissions for yourself. So there's two types of carbon offsets. There's the more sort of traditional carbon offsets that I've called them here, that have been trading on the voluntary carbon markets for years. So that's offsets from renewable energy and forest protection projects. These projects aim to mitigate future carbon emissions by investing in a certain system. And then there are the emerging carbon removal technologies and initiatives, which are more innovative, higher cost, but essentially suck out carbon from the air. And these could be the sorts of technologies that enable us to make up for the damage already created and maybe hit those ambitious 1.5 degree carbon targets as set out in the Paris Climate Accord back in 2015, which we're on track to miss quite severely, I think. In terms of purchasing carbon offsets, just a few words on this. My suggestion and recommendation would be to, at the moment, if that's something that you are looking at, it would be to look for certification and validation from verified standards. So any project that's certified by a verified standard will have gone through rigorous third-party evaluation and will be monitored consistently. And it will ensure that reductions are permanent and additional, and they can't be double counted because they're retired on a verified registry referencing that Sven Eberwein art piece I mentioned earlier. That QR code will take you to the verified registry, so you know that no one else is responsible for those emissions reductions. If you choose to offset with projects that haven't gone through third-party verification, I'd really recommend you just take a look and see how they are justifying that those carbon removals are achieved, because this is a problem with the carbon market, that could pay for a product, you get no physical thing back. So you need that sort of third-party verification that it really has reduced or mitigated carbon emissions. And then just to talk a little bit about the broader picture of carbon offsets, and to say that carbon impact isn't the entire story with carbon offsets. A good carbon offset project should deliver co-benefits to the local community for the region that it's located. So with Offsetra, we try to pick projects that we think go above and beyond to deliver for the communities they're based in. The AgriCortex project that we've been working with for a couple of years is verified by Verra and is RED certified to give us confidence it's delivering those carbon emissions that it's committed to. But then the project also uses funds to protect vulnerable plant and animal species in the region and to deliver sort of training and employment opportunities for the local people there. So the AgriCortex project, for example, has an additional certification called social carbon. So those co-benefits are a really important part of the offset investments that people make. And then for our renewable projects, similar to what Scott was saying, we try and focus on areas that may not have access to power at the moment, and that additional power supply will help people get on grid, help increase the quality of life of the people in those communities. So we have a project called the Serra de Hula Wind Power Project in Honduras, and Honduras is the worst sort of access to power in the American continent. So that's why we chose that one, for example. And I think I'll pretty much wrap it up here, just to say it's been a fantastic journey with Offsetra and Carbon FYI in the NFT space over the past sort of 3 months or so. We've offset 15,000 tons in 3 months, which is fantastic. So when I say we've offset it, I mean on behalf of customers and on behalf of artists, we've offset 15,000 tons. Really proud of that number. We've got a portfolio of projects that evolves over time. And we've got some nice pictures here. We've got the AgriCortex team doing some biodiversity assessments in the Amazon. We've got this, I like this picture of the football match with the backdrop of the Serra de Hula Wind Power Project in the background in Honduras. And then the far right falls, I think it's the Shower Falls in Belize, where the ballroom project that we support is based. So yeah, that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of Carbon FYI and Offsetra's work. And what we've been getting up to into the NFT space. So thanks for listening. We've got our links up there, offsetra.com, and check out Carbon FYI. If you've used Ethereum, you can just chuck your wallet address in Carbon FYI and it'll give you that indicative carbon emissions factor. Cool.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. I just want to say to everyone who is listening this summit, you can start writing your questions in the chat because we're approaching to the discussion panel and we have 2 amazing speakers to present. And I want to introduce you to Jeremy Lewis, Senior Director, NFT Acquisition at Crypto.com. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, everyone. I am going to drop a link to the slides that I am going to kind of use and reference because we're going to speed through them because I know we're a little behind. So if you want to hop on there, you can see it out, but I will also share my screen. All right. Can everyone see this beautiful title and Crypto.com logo?
Yes, we can see.
All right, good. So yes, as she said, my name is Jeremy Lewis. I am the Senior Director of NFT Acquisition at Crypto.com, which is essentially a really, really fancy way of saying sales. For us, if you are not familiar with Crypto.com, just a quick overview. We're the self-proclaimed, we'll see if that's true, if it's saying to the press, self-proclaimed fastest growing crypto platform in the world with over 10 million users globally. We have massive partnerships with Visa. And if you've looked at crypto in any capacity over the past 2 or 3 years, I'm sure we're targeting you with paid ads. So we've probably been in your inbox many, many times. To give you a quick overview, I feel like everyone's topics have been so incredibly insightful and so helpful in so many different ways. And I'm here to talk about money and the capital market that kind of goes around the NFT marketplace. The scary part about where we are with NFTs is people like me are now being tasked with going out and finding new business. And I mean that in the sense that I am, by no means a crypto expert. I'm not someone who's been in the space for 10, 15, 20 years. I sell enterprise software into media entertainment. And the reason I find that important is because the strategy behind our go-to-market is very much the same as the entertainment always has been. And that can go one of two ways. Can we try and make it a more sustainable future? Or are we trying to go back to the same thing we've always done, just in a new asset class? So I know what everyone on this call's probably motives are, but just kind of keep that in the back of the mind. So really quickly, this kind of just overshoots the explosion of NFTs since the beginning of 2021. I realize people on this call might have been involved in this space for years to come, but I think the biggest problem that we continue to see is that we are too at arm's length with new information. We're not giving people truly the chance to catch up. And that's a big problem. The egos and being stuffy about the potential for both good and bad is a really important piece. And I hope that's the narrative that we start to kind of run with as NFTs go from this, headline to a part of our everyday life. Moving on. Oh, and the big piece I want to kind of like point out there, and I think it differs from a stat we heard earlier, but the NFT marketplace accounted for about 0.1% of the overall transaction volume. 0.1. We have room to grow. And I mean that in the most positive ways, in the sense that this boom or this marketplace where everyone's kind of an influx into the infrastructure of NFTs, that's not sustainable in the sense of what it is today. But what we're going to see in the future is not, they're going to do NFTs to do NFTs. They're doing a part of their business that is truly just maximized by the technology that is NFTs. Moving forward, the big thing that I think is interesting for a lot of the, from the outside world is the fact that realistically, we're only tracking about 20,000 active wallets in February that were involved with NFTs, 20,000. Now, that's going to grow, obviously, and we'll have some fall off there. But those numbers are very much in their infancy. This is not a remotely a picture of what it'll be in 2 or 3 years. We're just kind of getting started from a sales and a marketing perspective on our side. Something that's really, really interesting, I'm going to include a slide here, is the Google Trends. If you were to look back in 2020, with big names in the space in comparison to 2021, you can look at that January mark when it goes up and to the right, like every pitch deck before people get funding. This is a phenomenon that is unlike anything I've ever seen in entertainment and media, and seeing the way that the market has responded, both in the what is NFT and why should I care, and the how do I get involved in it. They're all good questions. And I think it's our responsibility to find a way to craft that narrative in a way that actually is sustainable and isn't just that, this is a way you can make money once or twice and then continue the detriment of everything else that came before it. I know I'm going fast, but we've got questions to get to. All right. The big piece here is just looking at the trends in comparison to both DeFi and some of the other trading volume. Take a look on your own time and kind of just compare the numbers. I would challenge you in each one of your businesses to look at this arc and look at the way that you're presenting information to both your internal business and also the people that you're working with, and see, is this in line? Do you want to be, is there anything that you can do to influence this type of behavior in a market? Because realistically, the people that are in this room and on this call are going to be part of that future. All right. Very interesting stats here on the categories. I won't go into all of them, do them on your own time. Take a look at that far right, utility. 421% growth, which is great, don't get me wrong. If I had to guess, that column in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years is going to look like everything else up and to the right. I'm the person who's most incentivized from a financial perspective to go out and get these massive art pieces and collectible pieces. That's why they hired me. They did not hire me to be a crypto expert. They hired me to go find deals. My bet overall is that 5, 10 years from now, people who have no idea what an NFT is, or what they are going to use them every day of their life. And that's because the utility component is so natural and organic to the way that we already live our lives. It's just going to open up new opportunities. A couple other things. Interesting stat that we've pulled. 2020, metaverse dominated the NFT market big time. And I think that will continue to be the case, but in different iterations. The unique piece, of course, is that the art category, if you look at that number, the art reached an average price of about $2,500. I think that will continue to fluctuate like crazy over the next few months. I think we'll see a few massive wins. I think we'll see a few massive losses. I think we're going to start seeing the people who are continually in the media for only transactions and not partnerships. And it's our responsibility to pick the people that we think are trying to create long-term sustainable partnerships to do business with when we have the option to do that over just transactions. Market share, same piece. On your own time, take a look and see kind of where this looks at. But this is anyone's game in the sense that there's plenty of opportunities to do business that is unique to the type of relationships you want with your clients. Meaning that we take a very different approach to a lot of the other marketplaces. And I'll kind of get into that to a bit. But the most important piece here is there are a lot of players in the market. And I would suggest you do your research and have conversations with all of them, because they all bring something equally unique to the table. And what they're bringing to the table is probably best for one client or one use case and very, very, very different for the others. So any of the names that you see on this, do some research, check out what they're doing, and call out who's doing well and call out who's doing poorly. For the folks who are on the measurement side, I would be very interested in another follow-up to this conversation as far as getting all these platforms together. And just at the end of the year, opening up the information as far as what we feel good about, what we are ashamed of, and have an honest conversation, because until we can admit that there are things that we need to improve on, they will not be improved. So any of the names that are on here and any of the people in the measurement side of this, please reach out to me after this. We're very interested in having an honest conversation about where we're at today and every place that we're weak so that we can get better. From a growth perspective, OpenSea absolutely nailed it. 454%, big time. Obviously, they're an open marketplace. They have a very different type of relationship with their customers. But just looking at these numbers, there is massive growth year over year, quarter over quarter. The numbers will continue to be, I think, outlandish for the next few months until things become a little bit more consistent. But just looking at some of the growth on several businesses and the new line items and so many businesses that have become fruitful and interesting, it's interesting to see all of the players in the space. So not to make this a crypto.com commercial, but just a high level, we are actively trying to mainstream this place. We want to create a frictionless experience for users. And what I mean by that is the barrier to entry sometimes with crypto is it's off-putting for certain types of collectors and individuals because they have this stigma that it is, whatever they've looked on in the news. And so my challenge to my own team and everybody here is let's find and continue to find ways to help people understand where to start in a way that is sustainable. So that way they start with good habits. The last piece to go on the sustainability, I put links in the resources below, but we did announce our climate pledge last week. We have what we call an intergalactic roadmap that is going to give a very, very descriptive of narrative of what the next 4 phases of our steps are as far as being able to create an open ecosystem that is sustainable. If any of you have questions or any feedback or anything that you want to challenge on that website, we are open to those conversations. We want to hear where people feel like we could be doing better. We want to hear what we're doing well. We want to hear everything in between. So please, if this conversation is interesting to you in any capacity, take a look at the links. Please look through everything, and don't feel ashamed. Please challenge anything. We want to know where we can improve on so many different levels. Other than that, thank you. Really appreciate everyone's time. I'm very, very excited to kind of work with a lot of you hopefully in the future, and it's been a pleasure.
Jeremy, thank you so much. It was a great presentation, and it was I'm going to check how you're going to, about your plan to be carbon neutral. It's really great. Thank you so much. And the data you provided on the fashion, on the financial part, it's really great. And I want to welcome, last but not least, an amazing Megan Kaspar. managing director at Magnetics. Megan is widely recognized as one of the few female pioneers in the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFT sector. She was one of the first who started to look at this area about 10 years ago before it becomes such a hot topic. Hello, Megan, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I, as Olga said, have been investing and advising and incubating companies in the blockchain space since mid-2012. We've incubated most recently a NFT purpose-built blockchain called Wax, and Wax was formed in 2017 out of the idea coming from our ownership and involvement with the skins industry. We had the second largest in-game item trading marketplace called OpSkins, and being involved in blockchain and crypto, we saw where the convergence of skins will ultimately be disrupted by NFTs. And then that led us down a path to create a new North Star around everything becoming an NFT. And what does that look like, and how will that be essentially, disrupting what happened? Oh, sorry, my computer is fading out. So we created Wax essentially so we could provide purpose-built NFTs for the community using the delegated proof of stake chain. So we knew back in 2017 that proof of work and proof of stake, which is less energy consumption usage than the proof of work governance model, but proof of stake. Delegated proof of stake, which was created by Dan Larimer, and then ultimately EOS. So we used the code from EOS and created basically a side chain or sister chain, which is Wax. When you have NFTs tied to physical or digital, or the digital tied to physical, you're going to put, you don't want the transactions to be super costly, and you need scalability. So that's what you have with delegated proof of stake. When we look at the carbon emissions for blockchains, Elon Musk brought up a good point to look at in crypto, but in reality, the carbon emissions just from proof of work chain like Bitcoin, you have 22 million tons of carbon dioxide being emitted annually. When you compare that to the fashion industry, around 1.2 billion tons, or even the tech industry, which doesn't include the blockchain, you've got 1.6 billion metric tons being emitted. So it essentially dematerializing our world from the physical fashion industry down into the digital, and moving things into NFTs, we think is going to be the most, basically creating NFTs and taking them into a carbon footprint offset asset. So just in and of itself, taking the fashion industry and dematerializing it using NFTs will ultimately make the entire industry carbon, or at least carbon neutral. So that's really where we focus, and the best use case we think for that is going to be around AR, augmented reality, and implementing those NFTs into different platforms. Like right now, we really can't use the NFTs in many different environments, but the display functionality, features, and utility, that'll all be changed as augmented reality comes, which again, will help to offset a lot of these carbon emissions that people are focused on. When you look at it from a the perspective of terawatt energy usage, Bitcoin uses around 72 terawatts a year, Ethereum's at 28. When you look at chains that are using delegated proof of stake and proof of stake like Tezos and Wax, it's about 222,000 times more energy efficient. And then comparing that to something like a Facebook that uses 5.1 terawatts a year. So it's really, it is important to think about the conversation of energy usage with NFTs, but at the end of the day, it comes down to which chain you're using, and ultimately the NFT in and of itself is not a energy using medium. It's really the chain, and it comes down to how the chain is being governed, whether it's proof of work, proof of stake, or delegated proof of stake. So yeah, that's how we sort of analyze and look at the space. And we think that the best thing for the fashion industry in and of itself is going to be the dematerialization of the physical into the digital.
Okay, thank you, Megan, so much. Great presentation, and thank you for joining us today. Unfortunately, our last speaker, Lady Fee, sent us a message and saying that she couldn't make to her flight and she won't be able to participate. So in this case, we are moving to our discussion panel. And let's have a look to the questions from the chat. And I want also to say that for the discussion panel, we have Susan Kohler, a PhD fellow in sustainability of blockchain technology, who is joining us. I think I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm really sorry if it was not correct. Hi. Oh, we can hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
so let me ask the very first question, and when I'll take the questions from the chat. So going back to the renewable sources of energy, what do you think, how can you comment on that idea that NFT is actually helping to drive the switch into the more sustainable sources of energy, to make them more accessible and to make them, like, say, more popular?
I think this is a difficult point. It's one of the most discussed points. We're talking about proof of work in this relation when we talk about renewable energies and the blockchain and the crypto space, addressing this issue. I think one point that should be highlighted is that proof of work is designed intentionally to be energy efficient. That's how it works. And over the past years, we have seen a very significant increase in energy consumption due to blockchains. I think Bitcoin's blockchain alone has increased by over 400%, almost 500% since 2017, when we had the last hype cycle. And this increase of energy use needs to be somehow covered. Just using renewable energy could mean that you're displacing someone else's energy use if you don't create the electricity yourself, if you don't create additional capacity. And I think this is something that needs to be considered, that if you increase demand, you also need to increase supply, and you need to increase renewable supply. In order to also reach this 1.5 degree goal that would reduce or limit the effects of climate change long term.
Okay, thank you so much. I also want to ask the same question to Scott and maybe to Alex de Vries, if he's still here with us. Can you just make a comment about what do you think if NFT can facilitate moving or making renewable energy usage more more popular and to facilitate using the renewables?
Yeah, hi, yes, Scott. I actually believe there's a lot of ways for NFTs to help push renewables. One of the ways I think one of the last speakers mentioned is NFTs can create a sort of new way to interact with sort of the good that you're doing. So, you know, one of the side projects we're working on, the couple NFT artists and potentially with Open Earth Foundation is this idea of like an augmented reality NFT that represents the waypoint. And it's kind of like we're partnering with an artist to create digital art on the side of it. You purchase the NFT and then that gets you special access to a platform so you can actually see and visualize the good that you're doing in augmented reality. So that's kind of like one example where I'm a big believer in AR NFTs in particular, but that's kind of one example where NFTs are creating new sort of funding mechanisms and opportunities and ways to interact. And then from a larger perspective, just the overall concept that every sort of physical item will have kind of a digital address is important, especially when you're talking about solar. So really, one of the projects we started with Liquid Star was something we called like My Soul Crypto, where basically it was a way, we called it sunburning, where you could see sort of, if I charged a battery and we both kind of owned 50% of a solar panel, that battery would be charged 50-50. The battery would sort of be a quote unquote NFT. And then that NFT would be rented by someone and the revenue split of that battery would go 50% to me, 50% to the other person who was responsible for putting energy in it. So yeah, I really think NFTs are going to be just a critical, I think it's the first actual like real world mainstream, almost quasi mainstream use case of blockchain period. There have been a lot of projects that are more scientific, I guess, or more technology exercises. And NFTs now, the last few months is like the first like real example of that technology and the value that it creates. And then as you start to tie these NFTs that are purely digital right now to real world objects and then potentially real world actions as well, you're going to create like a sort of super hyper transparent market that enables a variety of new funding mechanisms for projects.
I'm sorry, I was muted. So Alex de Vries, can you add something on that point?
Yeah, well, sure. Well, I don't want to add a whole range of other potential solutions. I think it's pretty clear that NFTs can create new forms of incentives and can absolutely contribute to a better world. And my only message is, as I stated in my presentation as well, is that be mindful of how you build your NFT. If you're going to build NFTs on a platform that is designed to waste resources, as is the case in proof of work blockchains, then yes, of course, then that's not going to make the world better. But again, as I also mentioned, there's no need to do that. You can do these things in a more sustainable way. And then, of course, you can use this concept to create new incentives and potentially improve the world. Absolutely.
Okay. Great, thank you so much. We have another question from the chat, and this question is more about digital fashion. How much digital fashion can substitute physical? Which percentage in your opinion? And people are still going to buy a physical outfit to go out in their real life or not? And maybe we'll address that first to Adriana, if she's still with us. No? Davey?
I've quickly responded to that question. I think it's very difficult to come up with a proper answer because it's worse than a guesstimate, because we're charting uncharted territories here. So it really is a matter of being believers, of having gut feeling of what's going on, just like the first early adopters in the crypto universe are now being paid off for their early adoption. I mean, the first NFT users and people like Refact and all of those studios who are surfing on a wave of success, these are early adopters of notions that most of us in this panel had only a vague idea a couple of even a few months ago, and some of you guys just maybe learned about it in February of this year. So I believe instead of coming up with, you know, a vague number that that came out of nowhere, you can actually take a stand on that question and make it happen or not. I strongly believe there will be a boom in digital fashion. Like I said in the chat, I don't think this is something that is going to eclipse or eat shares of physical fashion. I think this is going to exist in its own context and of course overlap in many ways. But I strongly believe this is something that is going to be running on its own in its own way. It's as if it's an energy stream that is yearning to be free and to have the means to exist, which means that people who are jumping on this wagon early on, driven by passion, would most likely be the people who will benefit from this very early on, as being early adopters on that field will make them the leader when it becomes mainstreamed and turn into an early majority. So you have people in the chat asking about how to do this, student who just came out with their degree and willing to dive into digital fashion. The one thing I could tell you guys is especially if you've been learning things like pattern making or how to set up a collection, anything that you would learn in fashion school, this is going to come up very handy if you start working on specific softwares or stuff like that, because all of the idea behind digital fashion is baked in with ideas greater than fashion that have to do with multiverse and the existence of your instances or avatars in every little world that you can think of. It already exists. I mean, just if you guys are playing video games, you are spending hours on that. And if you're not, you're already spending hours on Instagram. So this is just something just like water in a water tank. If you're a fish, it already is around you. And you just need to take a step back and to realize that it's something that you're dealing with that is going to become greater even in a segment, in a sector, in industry that you know of. So I would say, don't try to find an answer to that question. Actually try to, you know, steer the ship in the direction of the answer you're expecting.
Thank you, David, so much. I just want to share that at DressX, we did our research on the displacement rate. It was done at the beginning of 2021. I'm just sharing you the results. Well, of course, it's really hard to calculate the real displacement rate at this point because the market of the digital clothes is not yet that mature. But what are the respondents? What the answers do we have? We have that 20% of our respondents agree that purchase a digital garment can fulfill the need to buy a physical garment. And those who bought at least one digital item in 2020, they say that 54% are going to buy another digital garment, and 46% say they would rather buy a digital garment for a new social media post. And our research also showed if we replace the digital fashion, the physical fashion with the digital fashion, at least on 1%, annually we can save the amount of the carbon footprint equals to the carbon footprint of the Denmark, which is huge. I know that Natalia has something to add about this, this question.
Oh, thank you, Olga. You actually addressed it. Just a little bit of more numbers that Barclays Bank statistics and research says that 9% of purchases of fashion in the UK happen for the sake of content creation, just for taking pictures. So if we will displace at least this 9%, it will be already a big number and already a huge market for digital fashion. And actually, maybe the last thing I wanted to ask everyone in our panelists group to answer. So what do you think? Is it enough to move to proof of stake and also offset something that is generated still using this model to call the NFT as sustainable? Or this is not enough and we should keep looking for the other solutions? Would be great that our speakers would tell their opinion, and I think we can wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So everyone who's left, please, this is the last question and we are going to wrap up this conversation. Jeremy, maybe you start first.
Oh, yeah, I'll hop in. As someone who's least qualified to speak to the technical side of things, let me speak to what I do understand. We need to be okay with finding new information. The deals that you're doing, the deals that we're doing in this room will set the trends, and hopefully they're moving in the right direction. Hopefully, of course. And everyone's press teams will talk about the wins. I think we need to talk about the losses just as loudly and say, that was wrong. We did this thing. You see us talking about a climate pledge. You see us invest. You see us doing all this good. And there's one place we didn't do well. We know that. We're going to improve. And I know that's a hard conversation to have, but until we are honest in all the ways that we're doing this through sustainability and not so sustainable, we are going to continue to be in the same place. So I think it's a less technical answer on my side, but it's more about just doing the right thing and then continuing to improve on that.
Great, thank you so much. Alex Taylor or Alex de Vries, anyone?
I'm willing to take it. Because if the question is a move to proof of stake sufficient to make this system sustainable, then the answer is actually no. Because if you reduce the energy consumption of these systems by 99.95%, that sounds like a tremendous reduction, and it is a tremendous reduction, but that 0.05% actually leaves a system that is still somewhat less efficient than the systems we're using today. And that's because ultimately in blockchain-based systems, we have data that is replicated. We have processes that run exactly the same on different services, where in the regular system, we tend to be using a single server or a limited amount of servers to be processing the same thing. So you are increasing the computational load. It's just that the effect of using a proof of stake blockchain versus using a proof of work blockchain, the difference there is so extreme that we tend to forget that blockchains were never really meant to be efficient. So there, we can still gain, even on a proof of stake blockchain, a little bit in terms of efficiency, maybe by using very efficient devices, making sure that we aren't using devices that aren't already online and connected to the internet. It's something we should definitely be thinking about after the move to proof of stake is completed, but it's definitely not the ultimate victory yet.
Okay.
We're getting very close, getting very close.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Alex Taylor, maybe you?
Great. Yeah, I mean, first of all, to Alex's point, I do think crypto and blockchain are going to be an enabler of great things. Going back to my point earlier on the future of the power system, I mean, the future of the power system probably needs to be a lot more distributed than it is at the moment. Crypto and blockchain can enable that transition. So we do need to think about the long term as to what proof of stake and crypto in general could enable. And it could be net positive for the environment, is my point. I think it's a long-term play. From a technical perspective, from a carbon accounting perspective, a transition to proof of stake plus offsetting, or not necessarily just offsetting, but giving to charities that are creating change on the ground, I think is a good thing to do. But I come from sort of climate policy work, and I think we need to remember that this isn't just a crypto problem. This is a societal problem, and we need to think about the big picture. Think about how many NFTs you're minting. Thinking about what platform you're doing it on. But think about your car. Think about what you're eating. Think about how often you're flying. It's been an incredible experience in the past 6 months in the NFT space. But I do think sometimes people forget about the big picture, and that this is probably part of a bigger problem. So that would be my final message.
Thank you, Alex. Susan, sorry, David, let's go. Susan,
Susan, just go, Susan. I'll do it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think the previous speakers make a lot of good points. I want to add a few other things. I think, first of all, it's great that you're providing this platform to actually discuss about this topic, to provide a space where you can bring up also some criticisms, some issues that can be then addressed. I also think you should look into, anticipating what other negative impacts could arise in the future, and looking at them openly. Two things that I didn't know about before that I thought were interesting, or I didn't think about before, is the lifetime of NFTs. NFTs, you don't just buy them, use them, and then throw them away like you would do with clothes. You may resell them, and that again has an impact. So there you're looking at different timelines, which I think could be an interesting point. Of course, then also someone else would not buy this, but I think that's something to take a look at. And this other point that Davey made earlier is that, will it curb hyper-consumerism, or will it actually increase it? That's something to consider and to keep in mind when moving forward in this space.
Great, thank you so much, Susan. Davey?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Susan. I think for all of you people who are jumping in on the NFT wagon and are aware of NFT because of the boom and the mainstream media explosion that it made, I just want to make sure that you people realize that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. And although there are some people who actually made a lot of money overnight because of NFTs, most of those people were early adopters of something that they were laughed at for months or even years. So we need to pay where it's due, but this is not the situation we are in. And you two people, part of the public, you're not in this position. You need, and we all need, even us panelists, to keep doing our homework to understand the phenomenon as it unfolds, because it's an actual big phenomenon. And it's not just a way to build another bubble of startups and try to get money fast out of it. So just, I would say, take your time to fully understand what's going on, because it's not going to leave overnight. It's here to stay. And the moves we and you people will be doing in the forthcoming years, even though things seems to be coming really fast and there's a big FOMO in this segment, don't worry about it. It's still here. Understand what it brings on the table, and then try to make the right moves to actually, like Jeremy said earlier, to actually keep the transparency of what's been done properly and what has not been done properly, especially since in a form of poetic justice, blockchain is most of the time based on a form of transparency that level trusts, which is the basis on which everything is founded. So don't try to rush in, and make sure you fully understand every repercussion of what you're going to be doing. And you're not going to be doing everything right. We can't just say, oh, let's scrap this because NFTs are another way of polluting or whatever. Let's just accept things as they come and try to adapt and be very transparent and honest about trying to do things right.
Great. Thank you so much, Davey. Isabel?
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about proof of work versus proof of stake. I think the way I see it, and I might be biased because that's my work, it all boils down to energy and where it's coming from. So even if you can reduce the amount of electricity that's consumed by minting, cryptocurrency mining or minting NFTs, I think that at the end of the day, if you solve for clean energy, you solve all of those problems and all problems in the future that might come, right? Because think about 20 years ago, when people were projecting energy consumption, nobody was considering the rise of cryptocurrencies to that level or NFTs. So I think the most important thing is to just keep pushing for clean energy to provide all of this electricity, and then we solve this problem and all the future ones.
Thank you, Isabel. And Scott, just in 2 sentences to wrap up, and that will be it.
Yeah, I think that proof of stake is a mistake, and the conversation needs to be reframed to focus on how, because it's not solving a like specific problem, because energy consumption isn't an issue, it's the energy mix that's the issue. And actually proof of stake in a weird way is taking blockchain back to the traditional financial system where, for example, to stake ETH, it requires like 10 to 30 ETH to do it. Like now you're reducing the inclusivity of all of this. And so to sum up, I think proof of work is the key. The energy that you use to do the proof of work calculation, that's what the conversation should be around, not creating a new solution just as soon as blockchain gets some mass adoption, we start changing things, right? So I think it's kind of the habit of this space where people are chasing the newest thing, but it's like the actual core problem is the energy mix used to create, do proof of work. And in a weird way, proof of work can help solve the energy mix problem globally. So we probably shouldn't move away from that.
Great, thank you so much, Scott. Thank you. I'll try Adriana again. If Adriana, are you here with us? No, I think Adriana left. Well, I'd like to thank you, all of you, for being here today, for your great presentations, for your great point of view, for all the information you shared. It was a great experience, guys. I learned so much, and I can imagine that everyone who participated today, they learned a lot from you. Thank you again. And I'll give the last word to Natalia and Daria.
Hello again, everyone. We really hope that this discussion was for you as educational as it was for us, because we definitely learned a lot from our amazing speakers, and we're super grateful to everyone's time and passion researching the subject together. This is so new, and I completely agree with some of the speakers that it's still a work in progress for everyone to understand what would be the best solutions for the future. We already have a lot of information that we need to take into consideration and definitely think about like the global way of how the entire industry can move into the right direction and kind of nudge it to the right direction if we clearly see the one. So thanks again. And I think that all the listeners who were today with us can still have this opportunity to re-listen the summit and to kind of digest all the information. As mentioned, it was a lot. And we will give this opportunity. We'll send the links to everyone who subscribed to our newsletters or like social media channels. So please make sure to leave all of your emails, contact data to receive this amazing video and some of the presentations in the PDF, so everyone can get back and re-listen to their own conclusions and maybe propose some new solutions to the world. This is a start of the discussion, and we encourage everyone to continue the discussion and to create the better future together. So that's why we're all here for. And Natalia, please, would you like to add before we finish?
Yes. Thank you so much for all the input. I believe that that's a great base to dive deeper in this topic and to actually create a roadmap and really make an impact. It's a very early stage, and the space is evolving. So let's keep the conversation going. And I thank all the speakers for participation and everyone who was listening. Please, if you have any thoughts on it or data, let's put it all together and we continue this research. Sustainability at DressX.com. Let's keep the conversation going, and thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great day or night, whenever you are. Thank you, guys.